Speaker. Let us pray. Almighty God, where you have called us to govern this province, we ask your help to make decisions and laws that will be just and that will promote the interest of the people. Almagtige God, ons bid dat u gedurende ons vergaderings ons die nodige wysheid sal gee en al ons motiewe suiwer sal hou en dat u ons sal help om al ons tekortkominge te oorkom en al ons besluite aan u op te dra. Sikelela iletwe letu na bantu balo. Umusile ukulungu kwe pondo letu. Nkosi sikelela Afrika, pina abantwana bayo, kokela inkokeli zayo, yaniki ukholo Afrika. All this we beg in your holy name. Amen. Please be seated. Before we proceed, honourable members, I would like to remind you of some of the logistical arrangements, as has been our practice to date. Honourable members will participate in the sitting of the House, both from here in the chamber with the presiding officer and table staff and via Microsoft Teams.
Okay.
Our standing rules have accordingly been amended to accommodate such hybrid sittings of the House. Honourable members experiencing challenges in connecting to the sitting are requested to contact the WCPP ICT colleagues who will assist to resolve their connectivity challenges. The quorum requirement for the sittings are provided for in the Constitution and the standing rules. Honourable members, unless there is an indication of unanimous concurrence, voting will be confined to members present in the House and on the hybrid system who are entitled to cast their votes as per the ATC issued on the 11th of August 2020. Members present in the chamber and via Microsoft Teams have all the privileges and immunities imparted by law. The Sergeant at Arms will record members in attendance, and in instances, honourable members, where directives do not cover for a particular eventuality, the standing rules must apply. And in instances where these rules cannot be applied, the ruling by the presiding officer is final. Members, all microphones have been muted. However, for those honourable members participating in the sitting of the House via Microsoft Teams, you are requested to use the raise hand functionality of the system when you desire to raise a point of order, and I will recognize you. When an honourable member in the chamber wishes to raise a point of order, such an honourable member may address the presiding officer as expected, but must mute their microphones when they have completed speaking. Honourable members are requested to please ensure that their microphones are unmuted when the presiding officer recognizes them, and when they are done speaking, to please mute their microphones. Honourable members participating in the sitting of the House via Microsoft Teams are requested not to sign into Microsoft Teams on more than one device. Honourable members, the media have also been granted access to this Microsoft Teams meetings as guests of the WCPP. However, members of the press may not use the chat room or speak or activate their cameras while the sitting is in progress. If an individual who is not a member of this House activates the microphone and video camera, such an individual member will be exited from the sitting immediately. Honourable members, I also wish that those who are here today who are not members of the House to please observe the decorum of the House. Honourable members, for the sitting, language translation services are available in the chamber as usual and on Microsoft Teams via the respective channels. And lastly, honourable members, I wish to remind you that no interjections are permitted during these hybrid sittings, and to this end, I wish to draw your attention to Rule 40 of our standing rules. Honourable members, with that being said, I recognise the Chief Whip.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Speaker, I rise on a motion of precedence for the subject for discussion to be dealt with first. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chief Whip. Honourable members, are there any objections to the motion being moved? No objections, agreed to. We will now deal with the subject for discussion in the name of the Honourable D. Plato as printed on the order paper. I recognize the Honourable Plato.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, for the opportunity to once again talk about this SASSA problem that just doesn't want to go away. Non-payment of social grants is a serious issue. And Speaker, this SASSA problem causing so many families, hundreds of thousands of families to suffer at the hand of this SASSA problem. And the ANC government does not know how to address this problem. They rather see that this problem persists, that our poor and vulnerable people continue to suffer rather than to find sustainable solutions. Speaker, organizations such as Black SAS and Open Secrets warned there was a crisis brewing in the administration and payment of social grants. They questioned why SASSA had and the post office had made Post Bank, which already had a reputation for technical difficulties, the preferred partner to take over the administration of social grant payments. Earlier this month, well over 600,000 vulnerable people already at the mercy of poverty could not receive their social grants as a result of what SASSA call a system glitch. An absolute disaster for someone who only has that money to rely on every month. Speaker, what we experience is a government unshaken by the plight of those forced to find a way to feed themselves and pay for electricity until the glitch was resolved. The so-called glitch is a glitch far too many. How disgusting. What happened was a clear sign of a government's complete incompetence. For many, it means a 3-week waiting period for the glitch to be rectified. Many people, including columnist Ibrahim Harvey, argue that there is no government department whose glaring inefficiencies, incompetence, and mismanagement have hurt and harmed poor and vulnerable people. The overwhelming majority of recipients to receive these grants, more than the Department of Social Development. SASSA's system quite often failed the public, and this is how the National Department of Social Development often treat the public, and in this case, the poor. And Speaker, let me say, they treat them with utter disgust. And listen to this, Honourable Speaker. And on top of it all, sending back to National Treasury billions of rands. It is said about 15 billion, then there's a figure of about 5-6 billion, but it doesn't matter. The figure, Honourable Speaker, is immaterial. The fact of the matter is that billions of rands was sent back to National Treasury. It's a clear sign of not knowing what to do with the budget, what to do with the money. No plan in place for the poorest of the poor. I want to take it further to say no plan in place for the Minister of Social Development's own poor people of this country. Let them suffer. Let them wait for their money. That is actually what the minister and her department are saying. And because of no plan in place, just send the money back. The best way of treating the poorest of the poor and hope the problem will go away. Proper leadership, proper management is at the root cause of this problem. No leadership from the minister and her chief directors. The minister and his Department of Social Development are supposed to use every cent of a budget to uplift the poorest of the poor. No vision, no plan on how to address poverty and disadvantage issues in South Africa. Because of no plan in place, we just send back the billions of rands and don't use it where we need to use the monies most. How can you do that to the poorest of the poor? And then we want the poorest of the poor to come and vote for us. And, Honourable Speaker, I will to say this very softly.
Order.
I want to say it very softly, Honourable Speaker. To hell with the poorest in need of the money. Elderly and poor people for days without food. Can we allow this to continue? in this new South Africa. The minister and the top management shows their incompetence to lead the Department of Social Development effectively and efficiently. Our elderly and disabled and disadvantaged recipients deserve much, much better from this national government.
True.
And to lie to the public that all recipients have been paid while hundreds of thousands of recipients visit the banks and post bank just to return home empty-handed, no money available for them. Honorable Speaker, the National Minister of Social Development is a shame for the disadvantaged public out there. She's a shame for the country as a whole. Speaker, I therefore call on President Cyril Ramaphosa to remove Minister Zulu from
Order,
that
members.
position. I ask for the
Order.
removal of the National Minister of Social Development immediately. She don't deserve that position because she don't know how to look after the poorest of the poor. The Democratic Alliance lodged a complaint with the South African Human Rights Commission to investigate the issues around social grant payments as a matter of urgency. I thank you, Speaker.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Order, members. Order. Thank you very much, Honorable Plato. I recognize Honorable Bakabaka Force.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Am I audible?
You are indeed audible, Honorable Member.
Thank you very much. Somlomo, namhlanje ndimaphambi kwalendlu ibekekileyo ndinentliziyo ebuhlungu ngenxa yembandezelo abantu bakuthi abazifumene bekuyo ngenxa yokungaphumeleli kwentlawulo yesibonelelo sikarhulumente kwinyanga kaSeptemba. Abantu bakuthi nabona bahluphekileyo nabaxhomekeke kwisibonelelo sikarhulumente ukuze bagxothe ikati eziko bazifumene ubomi babo buyinxwaleko emveni kokungakwazi ukufumana le ntlawulo ekuqaleni kwale nyanga. Ndima ngokuzithoba phambi kwabo futhi ndixolisa kakhulu ngemeko abazifumene bekuyo. Ndiyaqonda kananjalo ukuba ithemba labo kumbutho kazwelonke liye lavavanywa ngokugqithisileyo ngenxa yesisehlo. Imali yesibonelelo urhulumente ebezibhatele ngethuba, kodwa kuye kwakhona iingxaki zobuxhakaxhaka bale mihla kwaPost Bank, nento leyo ethe yachaphazela ukubhatala kwezi mali. Urhulumente we-ANC uyathembisa ukuba uza kuzama ngandlela zonke ukuba ingaze iphinde yehle le ngxaki. Honorable Speaker, the September payment failure which led to the difficulties faced by around 600,000 of grant beneficiaries was a result of technical glitch in post-bank payment system, a system upon which the livelihoods of 6.3 million people depend in August. Postbank underwent a migration to a new payment system designed to connect with a Bank Safe Africa platform and process transactions through the integrated grant payment system. No one could anticipate the havoc this migration would cause on the lives of a fellow citizens. Speaker, while noting that the subject for discussion for this debate is incorrectly framed as SASSA's inability to process payment efficiently on social security in the province, it is our responsibility to correct the misconception and convey the correct information to our people. On SASSA's side, all social grants were disbursed on time into beneficiaries' bank accounts, as has always been the case, unfortunately. One of the 21 banks used by SASSA to disburse social grants, which serves around 35% of SASSA clients, encountered difficulties on Monday and Tuesday, September 4th and 5th. Funds were deducted from both bank accounts but were not automatically reversed when withdrawals failed, leaving many clients unable to access their money, forcing them to take loans just to put food on their tables. To rectify this situation, a manual process was implemented to reverse this transaction. I'm pleased to report that the majority of these accounts have now been corrected, with failed withdrawals credited back to the accounts. However, due to the manual processes involved, there may still be a few beneficiaries in need of assistance. Many beneficiaries faced an added burden of taking loans to travel to local offices for assistance, and Postbank and SASSA call centers were overwhelmed by the influx of calls, complaints, and balance inquiries, which led to longer waiting times for assistance. In response, SASSA and Postbank increased resources and capacity to handle the increased workload, including extended office hours in high demand areas and off-site handling through outreach programs. The South African Reserve Bank also intervened by appointing an administrator along with a team of technical experts to assist this difficult situation. The Postbank has since given assurance that it is better prepared and such situation is unlikely to occur again. I implore all honorable members to convey the message to their constituencies that beneficiaries still facing challenges should contact the Postbank call center at 0800 535455. Send a WhatsApp message to 073 806 1631 or
Order.
email pb balancing switch at postbanks.co.za with their identity documents and card number. Furthermore, I call for community mobilization led by the provincial government, working with stakeholders and civil society to enhance the province's disaster preparedness. If the DA-led government really cared for the poor, it could have stepped into the database of all affected social grant beneficiaries in the province and provided for them in the form of food parcels or vouchers they could use at any of the retail stores. I urge Premier Windy and MEC Fernandez to ask provincial social development officials to gather this database to ensure that our province will never again be caught unprepared in the face of such disaster. We must unite across all party affiliation and rally behind our fellow citizens during the times of difficulties. Honorable Speaker, it is not the first time that this disagreement between Postbank and its service providers led to technical glitches that inconvenienced the poor people. It is with a heavy heart that I recall a similar incident in February 2021 that affected over 120,000 beneficiaries nationally. I therefore call upon the national government to expedite effort to address the long-standing disagreement between Postbank and service providers for access to the integrated grant payment system. A dispute that dates back to 2018, we cannot allow the suffering of our people to persist because of bureaucratic disputes. Postbank must also accelerate its effort to create its own system, ensuring stability and security of our social grant payments.
Thank you, Honorable
Honorable
Bakabakafos. Your time has expired. Can you please conclude?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Social security is the bedrock upon which the dignity and well-being of our people rest. The ANC national government remains committed to this ideal.
Thank you very much, Honorable Bakabakafos.
himself when he
Thank you very
said,
much.
I
I
thank you.
recognize the Honorable Klaas.
Thank you, Speaker. The impact of the SASSA inability to process payments, especially on social security in the Western Cape. The economic freedom fighters would like to take this opportunity to condemn the National Department of Communication and the Digital Technology and the Department of Social Development, together with their agencies, Postbank and South African Social Security Agency, SASSA, for the hardship and the pain they cause of the South African senior citizen and the person with a disability which solemn depend on social grant for their daily livelihoods. The following of disaster which took place early this month, which result in thousands of social grant beneficiaries believed left stranded as they could not access their grant payments from ATMs and retail outlets as a result of some glitch from the Postbank payment system. This latest disaster comes no surprise as well, and note that the post office and the Postbank are going through a state of dysfunctionality and collapse at the hands of the politicians and administrators who have no clue as to what they are doing and what their job description are. A government system with failed and elder and living with disability equates to a failed and hopeless government which does not respect the rights of dignity of our people. If a government cannot take care of the vulnerable, then all of us in trouble, and we are in time ticking bomb that can explode in any given time or imminent. It is not enough for the department and their entities to just offer an apology when we all know that it was bound to happen due to the collapse of post office and Postbank. There is nothing more sad than seeing elder people and those living in disability stranded in ATMs and retail outlets confused and teary as they do not know how they will afford transport money to return back to their homes or where their next meal will come from. The pain and the suffering bestowed upon these vulnerable people of our society. It is the pain and the suffering which are also there. The majority of our adult pensioners already carried a burden and accounted for sharing these monies with the rest of their families and dependents as we stay in the country with no high unemployment. These social grants, little as they are used to buy groceries, clothing, and pay rates of household. So the delayed payments, even by a little day, can have untold catastrophic consequence for their family. As the EFF, we call upon the Department of Social Development and all those involved to make sure that a disaster of this magnitude never occur again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Klaas. Thank you very much. I now recognize the Honorable Kaiser Philander. Order, members.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Speaker, on the 8th of September 2023, the Democratic Alliance in the Western Cape lodged a formal complaint with the South African Human Rights Commissioner against the National Minister of Social Development. This complaint was lodged on behalf of the people of the Western Cape and pertains to the gross negligence on the part of the National Minister, Lindiwe Zulu, to safeguard the socio-economic rights of SASSA grant beneficiaries in the Western Cape, specifically in regard to the provision of social security benefits. Honourable Speaker, last week we saw the ANC in this House objecting to a motion delivered in this instance, which is appalling and shocking to say the least. Honourable Speaker, this complaint is grounded in the constitutional framework of South Africa, notably Section 27 of the Constitution, which explicitly affirms the entitlement of every South African citizen to essential socio-economic rights, including but not limited to the access to healthcare, sufficient clean water and food, and social security. It is clear that the ANC in the Western Cape and nationally regrettably do not recognize or want to acknowledge that Minister Zulu has demonstrated a consistent pattern of inadequacy and delay in delivering the requisite social security assistance. Honourable Speaker, It is worth noting that the delayed disbursements of SASSA grants have become an enduring issue that has adversely impacted our grant beneficiaries for a prolonged period. Minister Zulu and the ANC's persistent failure to effectively address and rectify these recurring problems has exacerbated the hardships faced by the beneficiaries month after month and year after year. Speaker, it is also very noticeable that the ANC in this House and nationally do not care. In some communities, receiving SASSA may be seen as a diminishing term and level in society. It seems from the ANC's approach to this matter, they beg not to differ. And that says a lot of what they think about our people. Otherwise, they would have ensured that this matter receives the urgent and important attention it deserves. In the light of this protracted and unacceptable state of affairs, the Democratic Alliance in the Western Cape has taken the proactive step of bringing this matter to the attention of the SAHRC, and the purpose of this step is not political sensationalism. It is an action to demand accountability from Minister Zulu for her and the ANC's dereliction of duty in relation to grant beneficiaries in the Western Cape. It is avid believed that the actions, or rather the lack thereof, have caused significant harm and distress to those vulnerable citizens and their families who rely on social security benefits for their well-being, and thus warrant an investigation and remediation by the SAHRC. Honourable Speaker, if the ANC in this House or the man that is supposed to lead this country, President Cyril Ramaphosa, had any regard for the vulnerable people of the Western Cape and elsewhere, Lindiwe Zulu would have been fired by now. Well, I believe that the people that are suffering because of this, they will fire the ANC in 2024. Because this can simply not continue. It is unnecessary that our parents and grandparents, whom by their hard work and commitment built this country, must now be dependent on loan sharks on a monthly basis to keep them from starvation. Speaker, we learn from our elders. You pay your food, jy betaal jou begrafnisboekie, your rent, your ligte, and you buy food. The ANC government makes it impossible for its citizens to even afford the most basic necessities. They were afforded the opportunity to govern this country. They proved that they are unable and they have to vacate. Want so swaar kan ons mense nie kry nie. Speaker, it is important for the citizens of the Western Cape to know that a key focus of the DA social development policy is to provide higher levels of support to those in need and not doing away with the grants as the ANC propagate in their campaign gimmicks, but also to ensure that the pool of grant recipients is continuously shrinking. And Speaker, hoe sal dit gebeur? How will this happen? By ensuring that people are put in a position to stand on their own 2 feet instead of being stuck in a cycle of dependence on the state. Speaker, this is how the DA will build a resilient society in 2024. By emphasizing rights and reciprocal responsibilities, the obligation of one is dependent upon the obligation of the other. Providing for a socio-economic floor by ensuring that basic social security guarantees are met and that they are secured. By promoting the general welfare and well-being of the population, in particular, the vulnerable individuals and group. Agbare Speaker, die rede hoekom Suid-Afrika in so 'n groot gemors is omdat die ANC uitvoering is met die werklikheid in ons gemeenskappe. As dit was dat hulle sien 'n bejaarde staan 3 uur in die oggend op om SASSA kantore toe te gaan en dan terugkeer sonder 'n oplossing, sou hulle beter gedoen het. Agbare Speaker, while the member of the ANC in this House, Member Baku Vos, refers our residents to a WhatsApp number and to an email address, where must the people get the data money from while they don't even have money for bread? Agbare Speaker, the Democratic Alliance in 2024 is on a mission of building a resilient society. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Kaiser Philander. I now recognize the Honourable De Villiers.
Thank you, Speaker. I'm hoping that this will be one debate that we can all agree on. The devastation and trauma caused to our grant recipients this past month when their payments were not received on time is shocking, unacceptable, and must not be repeated. Postbank, the National Minister and Department must take the blame. The National Minister has consistently been warned of the pending disaster if the glitches identified in the past were not addressed. What makes this worse is that these are our most vulnerable citizens. Most of them are 100% dependent on pittance and on amount of to survive, and for them to have to wait for an extra day past the payment date is too much. What happened this month is inexcusable and criminal. Most of the recipients depend on this money to live on from day to day. When this is not adhered to, it can turn their world upside down. Some had no choice but to approach banks and loan sharks with a 60% or more interest rate. We cannot allow for this situation to repeat itself. Systems must be put in place to prevent this from ever happening again. Good is calling for assistance to be given to beneficiaries to have their payments changed to their conventional bankers, as it would seem as if Postbank were unable and incapable of handling the disbursement of these funds. I thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable de Villiers. I now recognize the Honourable Christians.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, SASSA's inability to process payments efficiently on social grants in the Western Cape is inexcusable, indefensible, and simply outrageous. Speaker, we can debate this, but the blame must surely go to the National Minister, Minister Zulu, and the ANC. We must ask ourselves the question. And the question is it because of an incompetent ANC, or was it a deliberate maneuver from the ANC playing games with the livelihood of the most vulnerable? Speaker,
Order,
the
members.
ANC is so conniving
Order.
that they threaten the defenseless, the most insecure, to say to them, if you do not vote for us in 2024, your grants will be removed. That is what they say. Well, Speaker, let me say the ANC made their biggest mistake because the voters will punish them in 2024.
Order.
Let me say this. The ANC will receive a single-digit figure in 2024 in the Western Cape, and that is less than 10%. Let me say further, speaking to the people on the streets, on the road,
Order.
asking them the hardship that they endure, and they are pointing fingers at Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of this country, that's failing the most vulnerable, the most insecure, and people that need the bit of grants that they receive. Speaker, in conclusion, I want to say, the previous speakers mentioned this. Do you know
Order.
people that go for money day after day with no communication, hoping that there's money? There was no money.
You've
And
been
they must pay for
shouting and
transport,
not getting
and now
any
they must
seats.
pay loan sharks
Order.
because they had to
Honourable
provide
Christians,
to the
your time
families.
has
I
expired.
thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Christians. I now recognize the Honourable Marais.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, it's obvious listening to all the discussions here that the ANC rule is the glitch in our country. Not SASSA, ANC is the glitch. And the people who voted ANC are all worse off today. And they should wake up. The majority of black people in this country has allowed themselves to be led by intellectually bankrupt and chronically corrupt leaders. They are expected to live off food parcels like beggars. Democracy allows people the freedom to elect their own leaders, and this we did. But I ask the question of this House, why must those people, SASSA grantees, who refused to vote ANC in 5 elections, why must they also be ruled by the ANC? Why must they suffer under ANC misrule? since 1994. Why must minorities be forced to submit to the will of poor governance of the majority? It's time to break the chains of rule by the majority. It's time
Order.
for minorities to
Order.
stand up and claim their right of self-determination. Dr. Walter de Blanche, Virginia Peterson, and Mr. de Graaf were my department when
Order.
I was Minister of Social Services, and the Western Cape ran our own SASSA grants in the Western Cape. We did the payouts. Why was that stopped? We did a good job. We let the money be paid directly into our bank account, and we arrange payments of these. It can happen again. ANC is deaf to the suffering of the poor, whether you're white, colored, or Indian or black. And the electorate should kick them out in 2024. Tata ANC, Tata SASSA, Puma ANC. That's what they should
Honorable
say.
Marais, your time has expired. Please conclude.
Those who continue to
Order.
vote ANC in 2024 will be the architect of their own misery and chronic poverty. We will stop
Thank you
pitying
very
them.
much, Honorable Marais.
Thank
Your
you.
time has expired. I now recognize the Honorable Minister of Social Development, Minister Fernandez.
Honorable Speaker,
Order, members.
Honorable Speaker, I welcome this much needed debate on the impact of SASSA's inability to process payments efficiently on social security in the Western Cape. As my colleague
Order.
vividly sketched the disgraceful and inhumane lengths people have had to go to in order to access grants and the battle to merely survive, I wholeheartedly echo their sentiments. After a press briefing by two national ministers, Zulu and Gungubeli, on the 14th of September, declaring that the glitch was resolved and receiving feedback to the contrary, I paid a visit to a few SASSA offices and post offices. I was deeply saddened at the sight of the elderly, frail and disabled in the cold and treacherous Cape Town weather who queued in hope of drawing their much-needed grant money for food, paraffin, taxi fare, electricity,
Order.
amongst others.
Order, members. Honorable
Many-
Minister, my apologies. Please take your seat. Honorable Chief Whip, is there a point of order?
Yes, Speaker, I rise on rules 39 and 40. Speaker, it is becoming disturbance to hear the minister on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, because this is a political debate, I don't want to stifle free speech, but please be mindful when a member's on the floor, please do not drown out the speaker and please do not affect the decorum of the House. Honorable Leader of the Opposition, is there a point of order?
Yes, thank you, Speaker. Ek wil net vra is die LEK vir sosiale ontwikkeling bereid om 'n vraag te kry
All right.
van my
I
wat
will,
eintlik die
I
waarheid
will
sal
ask the
verduidelik.
minister if she's prepared to do that. Honorable Minister, are you prepared to take a question?
Speaker, I'm happy to engage on petty issues. that
Honorable
impact
Minister, please
the
just, you're not prepared.
continues.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable Leader of the Opposition, the Minister is not prepared to take a question. Honorable Minister, you may continue.
Dis nie
Many beneficiaries talked about taking loans on a daily basis just to get to SASSA and post offices. I sat in Gatesville Post Office where grant beneficiaries were told on the Friday to come back the following week and that hopefully there will be some money in their bank accounts on Tuesday or Wednesday. Clearly, the technical glitch referred to during the press conference had not been resolved. I since ascertained that post offices were instructed to request cash holdings from Post Bank nationally, which impacted their ability to pay grants timeously since some of them had run out of cash. Gatesville, Honourable Speaker, is the only functioning post office in the Athlone cluster. Hence, beneficiaries converging from a wide catchment area due to post offices having closed due to non-payment of their rent. These are serious red flags. This week marks more than 3 weeks since the most vulnerable citizens of this country have been struggling to access their social assistance grants. Sadly, my office is still receiving complaints and desperate pleas from beneficiaries.
I have subsequently written to both Minister Zulu and the Deputy Minister Bokopati Zulu to request an urgent min-met before the next SASSA grant payouts are due on the 4th of October for all MECs to receive a progress update. Based on the public display of discord between the Office of the Minister and the Deputy Minister, I felt it prudent to include the Deputy Minister in this meeting request to ensure seamless and uniform communication to the public and not a Twitter war. Speaker, allow me to detail some of the instances where the most vulnerable of society were marginalized even further and stripped of their dignity long before the shenanigans between Postbank and SASSA surfaced. What the national ministers failed to tell the nation was that Postbank was served notice on the 31st of July that the switching service provider would not deliver services due to non-payment to the tune of nearly 4 million rand. Postbank then went to court to ensure that the services were provided. However, the switching company said to them, "We are not prepared to provide the service. We will withdraw," and they have since secured a new service provider. However, we must question the tender that was given to Postbank because there are seemingly irregularities around it. And then we also read in the newspaper that the board members had resigned, only then to be told that they were fired. So this begs the question, Speaker, what is really going on at Postbank? SASSA has been in existence since 2005, and it's disheartening to see that after 18 years, they still have a long way to go in providing a dignified, caring, and humane way of delivering social assistance to the most vulnerable. Honourable Speaker, in February 2012, Net1 subsidiary Cash Paymaster Services won the tender to pay SASSA grants. But a rival bidder, Allpay, questioned the terms of the tender, and in 2014, the Constitutional Court declared the contract invalid and ordered SASSA to start a new process. However, the court decided to allow CPS to continue to distribute the grants in the meantime, so as not as to disrupt the payment of existing grants. Here is a thread emerging. Honourable Speaker, in 2015, the Minister of Social Development, Patabile Dlamini, herself admitted that the rate of deductions from grant beneficiaries had increased significantly since the appointment of CPS, and that there had been contraventions of legislation which lays down that social grants cannot be used as collateral, and they can only be used for one deduction to a maximum of 10%, and that is for funeral insurance. Well, we all remember the 10 Rand deduction saga, which the Black Sash pursued on behalf of the most vulnerable. In July 2018, we saw another headline, SASSA dealing with technical issues and payment glitches. In May 2020, approximately 435,000 people in the Western Cape reportedly received duplicate payments, while 450,000 old age grant recipients in KwaZulu-Natal never received a payment at all. Earlier this year, beneficiaries were negatively impacted by the Postbank Gold Card saga, and so we can continue. Honourable Speaker, CPS was a technical glitch. Net1 was a technical glitch, and our Postbank is the technical glitch. The question remains, though, who and what is the common denominator? Earlier this year, we welcomed the judgment handed down that former Social Development Minister Patabile Dlamini and others pay back almost 3.5 million for personal protection services. This judgment provided hope. We were hopeful that this judgment would put an end to SASSA's long history of prioritizing top management, fraud and corruption over the vulnerable grant beneficiaries. Hope, however, quickly turned to despair when allegations surfaced of SASSA's staff taking out funeral plans on the lives of the elderly without their knowledge. This, if true, is scandalous and must be dealt with emphatically. Honourable Speaker, in spite of the dysfunction at SASSA, the Provincial Department of Social Development remains committed to serve the most vulnerable of society and to help wherever possible. However, SASSA needs to make urgent, fundamental, policy changes that are required to ensure that the most vulnerable receive the necessary social relief of distress in the quickest, most efficient way possible. Minister Zulu needs to focus all her attention on SASSA and ensure that due diligence and oversight is exercised over third-party service providers on an ongoing basis and not deflect and abdicate her responsibility as the custodian of the most vulnerable in South Africa. In closing, I can confirm receiving a WhatsApp message from Minister Zulu earlier today, where she expressed a concern regarding the flood disaster. I quote, she said, "We are so sorry to see the disaster happening in the province. Thank you for stepping up in support of the affected communities. I got the first report from SASSA today," unquote. I welcome Minister Zulu's acknowledgement of our letter. However, there are lots of courageous conversations to be had if we wish to resolve this issue. My fellow South Africans, I remain hopeful that we will see the much needed changes at SASSA
Minister, please
sooner rather
conclude.
than later. However, we need transparency, political will, and greater collaboration to ensure that the rights of the vulnerable are not
Thank you very much,
compromised. I
Minister.
thank
Your
you.
time is up. I now recognize the Honourable Brinkhuis.
Thank you very much, Speaker, and good afternoon to everybody. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Firstly, Al Jamaa sends its condolences to the families of the 4 young boys tragically electrocuted while playing in water at the Klipfontein Mission Station in Philippi, and to the families of the 3 passengers who died in the fatal bus crash on Jakes Gerwel Road on Monday morning. Al Jamaa further acknowledges that the tremendous inconvenience and hardships caused to thousands of people who were unable to withdraw their SASSA payments this month. We are calling on government to assess the state of Postbank and to work towards preventing any such incidents from taking place in the future. The fact that thousands of people were left without money, food, and other basic necessities further exposed the poverty levels in the Western Cape of the most vulnerable sectors within our communities, and worse for those living in the rural areas where there are high levels of poverty. We are aware that the city of Cape Town has one of the highest rates of poverty in the country. For people not receiving their SASSA grants on time is indeed an injustice. So too should there be equal outcries for injustice when families, I'm referring to farm workers, that are being unjustly evicted from their homes. It is a shame that these families who have lived for generations on farms must be threatened with eviction. We call on the Western Cape government to lodge a complaint with the South African Human Rights Commission to investigate the thousands of unfair evictions from farms taking place in the Western Cape. I thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Brinkhuis. I now recognize Honourable Barnes.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I must say that it is indeed a privilege to stand here and debate on this matter today. The national government, which is the ANC, the government of the day, has always been confident and knew that actually the imbalances of the past need to be addressed through social grants. And it's not a policy for all parties. The ANC is always criticized for having this country as a free for all, everything must be for free. But today we hear from the counterparts from the left speaking a lot about the free for all and having views on that. I must say, Speaker, it is indeed an eye-opener for everyone to see that the imbalances of the past, they need to be addressed. And there's no way you can say it's not important. It is shown by what happened this week through SASSA. Achtbare Speaker, achtbare lede van die wetgewer en geagte burgers van die Weskaap. Ek staan vandag hier met 'n swaar daad. Bewus van die swaar kry van die mense van die Weskaap. Onlangs ervaar het as gevolg van die onvermoë van SASSA om betalings doeltreffend te verwerk. Ek bied 'n opregte verskoning aan die begunstigstes van hierdie geraak is. Ek is ook oproep herhaal wat die lid Baku voorheen gemaak het
vir die nasionale regering om die begunstigdes te vergoed vir ekstra uitgawes wat hulle moes maak. Hierdie betalingsfout het ontstaan deur tegniese foute in die posbank en betalingsstelsel. Daar is berigte in die media dat hierdie fout vooruitspruit uit die oorgang na 'n nuwe betalingsstelsel as gevolg van verskil van die vorige diensverskaffer. Ek wil die begunstigdes verseker dat so 'n voorval nie weer sal gebeur nie. In hierdie verband het die ANC provinsiale leierskap reeds begin gesprekke met hul nasionale mense om blywende oplossing vir hierdie aangeleentheid te vind, veral in die Weskaap. Honorable Speaker, this month's social grant payment failure affecting thousands of recipients resulted from a system glitch with Postbank, not SASSA at fault. Media reports reveal Electronic Connect, the software supplier, threatened to suspend services due to unpaid invoices by Postbank, forcing a rushed migration with inadequate testing. While service providers deserve payment, it's disheartening to see one deliberately inconveniencing vulnerable citizens for profit. Regarding ongoing governance issues at Postbank, we appreciate the minister's intervention, but these issues have deep-rooted origins. Both resignations and dissolution are the sole reasons for the recent failure. The call is to our counterparts in national government to accelerate in solving the issue. Our duty as legislators is to support government efforts to lasting solution, prioritizing citizens over the interest and not to be the source of division and sowing confusion, as some have done during the challenge. Together, we must address these challenges head on. It is regrettable to note that the DA is sponsoring this debate. It has shown a lack of genuine concern for the affected grant beneficiaries. It is not enough to raise the issue for political expediency. Action must follow. The DA's failure to gather information on the matter of affected individuals and their lack of efforts to provide assistance, maybe through food parcels or vouchers, it speaks volume, Speaker. The MEC and all other DA members that are participating in the debate have failed to display how provincial government contributed in assisting in this drought grant beneficiaries. As expected, they are not supporting anyway the grant system. Upon receive.
Honorable member, you can continue.
The mic is not on, Saraj.
Honorable Barnes, your microphone.
Saraj Barnes is on.
Order, members.
The mic is not on.
Order, members.
Speaker.
Honorable.
Upon receiving this grant, Speaker, beneficiaries unfortunately still have to pay those money to a high electricity bill that is highly in this city of Cape Town rated abnormally so. The DA is not taking responsibility. The DA refuses to taking responsibility. They rather take the matter to the human rights. What are they doing as a province to interact and intervene? Let us not forget that the social grant payment is not only social development emergency that has transpired in our country and province this month. The recent storms that hit province in the past week have left many displaced and desperate in need of assistance. Additionally, a total of 8 fatalities has been caused by electrocution were confirmed during recent storms. 4 people died in the COVID-19 informal settlement in Drofsan, as well as 4 children in the Klipfontein area. Speaker, we just visited now with a few of my colleagues that are the families. I must say, inequalities must be addressed. There's no way water can be on that level. And we only see at certain times there are challenges within this house when it goes to the national government. Our backyards here in this province, we are drowning in water. That's why the children are dying. The DA-led Western Cape governments lacks the response to this crisis is concerning. Who shall we blame to this death on? The tragic loss of 8 people due to inadequate housing conditions requires the government's immediate intervention. Additionally,
The flooding, extensive damage to properties, public infrastructure, and agriculture cannot be ignored. We plead with the provincial government to also prioritize the poor farm workers when it responds to the impact of flooding. Speaker, in 2019, the DA in its manifesto committed to building a One South Africa for all by creating a caring social assistance system, a fundamental step to achieving it. This system should be able to deal with challenges posed by the increasing levels of economic inequality and income poverty. The DA's commitment of building One South Africa for all stands in stark contrast to their recent Lost Jobs for Growth strategy, which seeks to widen economic inequality and income poverty. It is essential, Speaker, to recognize that under the DA governance in the Western Cape, the majority of Black individuals, particularly colored and African communities, bear the brunt of poverty, incomelessness, homelessness, and hunger. The living conditions in poor class communities in the Western Cape are a testament of the DA's persistence in maintaining inequalities. The recent mass murders in KTC serve as a chilling reminder that violence continues to plague these communities, echoing the legacy of apartheid and colonialism. Speaker, for the nearly 3 decades, the ANC has invested significantly in rectifying the injustices of apartheid through social policy and transformation. The DAS has consistently opposed these transformative efforts. Their manifesto is called for a labor market flexibility exemption clause aimed at making the process to hire and fire employees simpler and allowing potential employees to opt out of relevant sectoral minimum wage, which would have a new minimum of no less than the old age grant. The purpose of this is to further entrap the poor in poverty, Speaker. Lastly, it is imperative for the DA to understand that technical glitches are not exclusive to any institution. Even one of their biggest funders,
please conclude your
even one of their biggest funders, Leroux Banks Capitec, experienced the technical glitches this week. Thank
you very much, Honorable Barnes. Thank you very much, Honorable Barnes. Please, Honorable Bosman.
Thank you
Order,
very
members.
much.
There's a member on the floor.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and good afternoon. Honourable Speaker, through you, I'd like to ask Member Barnes, Honourable Barnes, that instead of spending so much time supporting the national government and the national executive, as she sees her role is to support the executive, she should really open her eyes and look at the mammoth amount of social relief of distress.
Order. Honorable Bosman, please take your seat. Honorable members, there's a member on the floor. Can I please ask that the members on my left not directly engage the member on the floor, but also Honorable Bosman, can you please speak to me? Order, members.
Honourable Speaker, through you, die waarheid maak altyd seer. The ANC did not see the amount of support that was provided by this government to members of to members evicted by floods in this province over the last weekend, because they were too busy with their heads in the sand and too busy writing apologies for Minister Zulu and the African National Congress government. Speaker, concerns have been expressed that a glitch in the post-bank system that prevented thousands of beneficiaries from accessing their social grants has not been fixed. Despite assertions by Postbank, all overdue South African Social Security agency grant payments to recipients have been made. We know they have not been paid. While this is tragic, this is ultimately what we have come to expect from a chronically flawed system. It has become apparent that the crisis at the National Department of Social Development and the South African Social Security Agency runs so deep that we have no choice but to completely overhaul the social security system in this country. We need to ensure that those most vulnerable in society are taken care of, because we know, according to research, each senior citizen who receives a grant of only 2,080 Rand is very often responsible for the care of more than 4 family members on average. The failure of Postbank and SASSA to pay these grants have been felt far and wide. We saw the hurt, we saw the pain, and we saw the betrayal on the faces of our beloved grandparents as they had to stand in undignified queues day after day.
Order.
Tragically, Speaker, we know of at least one case where an elderly senior citizen has died while standing in a queue, and we send our condolences. Honorable Speaker, Member Baku Force said that she apologizes on behalf of the ANC. And just like her, my heart is also very sore that she has to come and stand here and apologize for Minister Zulu, because we know the dysfunction in the National Department of Social Development is so apparent that the Deputy National Minister of Social Development, our dear friend, Deputy Minister Bopa Zulu, has gone to Twitter to ask, what have the elderly done to deserve this treatment from the ANC? We must say, Speaker, this is not a technical glitch. It's a failure on the Department of Social Development to meet its most basic obligations, relief of distress. We have to ask ourselves, what possible reason could there be for this routine tasks of grants that has to be paid for being so abruptly stopped? Perhaps what we see now with SASSA is a recurrence of the infamous cash paymaster saga, or the many other scandals where our ANC comrades are busy preparing to steal ahead of the elections. Whatever the specific cause for this glitch is this time, the essential factor behind SASSA's dysfunction is all too easy to guess. The ANC has ruined our economy, and it has made millions of people reliant on the state to survive. But at the same time, they've ensured that the state has become so dysfunctional and corrupt that it cannot even function. Even former President Thabo Mbeki this weekend reminded us that the state has failed, and they fail miserably all the time. To live in South Africa in 2023 is to exist in a constant state of crisis. A government that steals from its people with such ease is a crisis. A government that does not seem to care about the failure to pay senior citizen grants is a crisis. Almost everything the ANC touches becomes a crisis. We have known for years that this government is in crisis, and every week we are reminded of the deep rot. But we never thought the ANC would stoop so low as to withhold the only means of income for the elderly in our society. We know, Speaker, that some of our elderly residents have been forced to take out private
please
loans.
take your seat. Honorable Barnes, since Honorable Bosman has started his speech, you have been running commentary throughout the speech. I understand that interjections are allowed, but can I please ask that you allow the honourable member to make his presentation? You had an opportunity to do yours. It is a political debate, so I don't want to stifle freedom of speech and interjections as per the rules, but please, running commentary is not allowed. Honourable Bosman, please continue. And again, Honourable Bosman, can you please speak to me?
Yes, Speaker. Through you, I see the honourable members even trying to steal time now. Speaker, this latest crisis does not seem to be a surprise, since we know that since Postbank has taken over the management of grants from SAPO in October 2022, there have been at least 3 nationwide technical problems with the payment of social subsidies. During November 2022, a technical error occurred. A cyber attack in December stopped grant disbursements, and there was yet another issue in January 2023. SASSA has claimed on numerous occasions that these problems have been fixed. Clearly, they were wrong. Our social grant system remains in crisis, just like the ANC remains in crisis. We desperately need a government in the union buildings that understands the need for urgent economic growth to enable citizens to thrive. Our current social security system is severely overburdened, and the inability to pay senior citizens their grants is just one more example of where Minister Zulu has failed. Another example of a system in crisis is that minister in crisis. At what point do we say enough? At what point do we as South Africans get tired of this broken party presiding over a broken government? At what point do we demand that this constant state of crisis is ended? What we need is to go back to basics, and we need to allow competent provincial governments to bring power to the people. This means we need to devolve policing and rail infrastructure to a provincial level. It means we need to be given the power to fix our ports. It means that we need to fund provincial departments of social development to adequately manage the administration of grants and to pay out those grants. Surely they can do a better job than SASSA. Surely they can do a better job than Postbank, who has been outsourced this responsibility. Honourable Speaker, I support Member Baku Force's call for community mobilization. In fact, she shouldn't worry. the Democratic Alliance is busy mobilizing voters by registering them to vote so that we can get rid of this government in crisis. Speaker, through you, I want to remind Honorable de Villiers that he should really use the immense influence that he has through his party's position in the National Cabinet to give some advice to Minister Lindiwe Zulu and to President Cyril Ramaphosa on how to pay grants, because an ANC government supported by the Good Party is failing the people of the Western Cape. We must not forget that this ANC Good Alliance is part of the problem. Speaker, I really want to encourage Member Barnes to go and listen to the words of former President Thabo Mbeki, where he says the government of the ANC has outsourced its responsibility. And I want to urge through you, Speaker, that members of the opposition join us and that we outsource the ANC to the rubbish bin. I want to remind honorable members and through you, Honorable Barnes, that Postbank is not an outsourced private agency. Postbank, through you, Honorable Speaker, is an entity of the ANC national government in crisis. Speaker, we live in a world that is becoming more and more expensive, and we cannot allow those already so vulnerable to suffer under this uncaring ANC government. It's time for this crisis to end. It's time for change. And through you, Honorable Speaker, to Member Barnes, it's time for the DA.
Thank you very much, Honorable Bosman. Thank you very much, honorable members. That concludes the debate on this subject. We will now move on to interpellations in terms of Rule 197. Honorable members, are you done? Okay, continue. Honorable members, we have a long sitting today. I'm more than happy to let you continue with your interjections, but I'm not going to compete with you today. So if you want to continue, you can continue. Otherwise, we'll move in terms of Rule 197, and I recognize the Honorable Minister, Minister Mackenzie.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, in respect of the handover of the 31 BMW vehicles to traffic services, to clarify to Honorable Bimbi, a total of 136 replacement vehicles were ordered and 122 were delivered to government motor transport. Of these 122 vehicles, 31 have already been handed over to provincial law enforcement. 14 vehicles are still outstanding of the order of 136 and are being followed up with BMW South Africa regularly. BMW South Africa delivery of these vehicles is anticipated toward the end of this month or early November. As to the stages as requested by the honourable member, GMT's replacement vehicle onboarding and conversion process for provincial traffic fleet entails the following stages. The stages are and was done for the remaining vehicles already delivered but not yet handed over is as follows. The registering of each vehicle in GMT's asset register, the registration of the vehicle in NATES, the fitment of number plates, the fitment of branding and reflected markings, the fitment of emergency lights and sirens, the installation of tracking devices, the installation of driving recognition devices. This is linked to the orange driver tax issued to all drivers of government vehicles, the installation of in-vehicle technology such as automatic number plate recognitions, APNR camera solutions. The final steps being implemented are the fitment of the tablets or the screens and the brackets for the latest queries and or other traffic law enforcement purposes, and the loading of a digital push-to-talk app on vehicle screens. The rollout of the push-to-talk app on the traffic officers' handheld devices also run in parallel with the preparation of the for the replacement vehicles to ensure the officers' handheld devices work with the vehicles handed over. The B part to the honourable member's question, what will he do to ensure the vehicles are on the road as soon as reasonably possible? We're doing everything possible within the prescripts of the law to ensure the safety of officers, but more importantly, the people of the Western Cape. The first batch of the 31 vehicles was handed over to the Metro on the 12th of September. The second batch of 36 replacement vehicles for Beaufort West, Laingsburg and Worcester is planned for next week, Thursday, the 5th of October. The final two batches of the vehicles are expected to be handed over towards the later part of October with a completed rollout of 122 replacement vehicles by the 31st of October this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I recognize the Honourable Mvimbi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and thank you very much to the Provincial Minister for the response that he has given on this matter, albeit we are not very impressed around the manner in which this issue has been dealt with, because if it was not for the proactive involvement on the media on this matter, maybe we wouldn't have even have known about these BMWs that are actually standing idle there. Honorable Speaker, the ANC caucus stands before this esteemed legislature today to address the recent handover of 31 BMW vehicles to the Provincial Traffic Department by the Democratic Alliance-led provincial government. However, we are deeply concerned about the inexplicable delay in releasing the remaining 100 vehicles, which have been sitting idle and gathering dust at the government garage. This issue of delayed deployment not only constitute wasteful and fruitless expenditure, but also undermine the government's ability to enhance road safety, particularly as our country marks the transport month in October. We cannot ignore the stark contrast between fanfare surrounding the release of this initial 31 vehicle and the 100 others that languish idle in the government garages. It is imperative that we scrutinize how the manner in which the provincial minister have dealt with this manner, who in our view has proven that to be very ineffective in dealing with this manner and actually in delivering his sole responsibility on this issue. There is no reason why we should be still having ongoing discussion of this matter. This is a matter that we believe that it should have been finished a long time ago. And also we still actually, as we warned the Premier in the beginning, around the responsibility of the current MEC on this job. The people of the Western Cape are still puzzled why it has taken the government nearly 20 months to get vehicles on the road. The timing of the procurement of these vehicles, which appear suspiciously close to the end of the financial year, is raising concern of fiscal dumping. The delay in handing over the remaining vehicle is a matter of grave concern. It raises questions about the government's commitment to road safety, especially as we approach the festive season and school holidays. Our communities cannot afford such delays when it comes to ensuring the safety of our roads. We particularly like to raise the issue of fiscal dumping because the minister himself is on record having accused a certain national government of fiscal dumping, and he was even suggesting in this house what action he was going to take in those. So we would like to actually call on the minister to actually act on this issue. Revealing an additional 100 vehicles remain dormant. Revealingly, an additional 100 vehicles remain dormant in government garages despite having been procured a year ago.
Thank you very
These
much,
vehicles
Honourable
could have
Mvimbi.
been deployed for various
Your time has expired for your first opportunity. You'll have another opportunity. That's the first opportunity has expired. I now recognize the Honourable America.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Honourable Mvimbi. Thank you, Minister, for your response. It is worth noting that if Honourable Mvimbi had read your press statements, he would have found the answer to his question nearly 3 weeks ago. Honourable Speaker, the Democratic Alliance eagerly anticipates the rollout of the remaining traffic service vehicles. Having modern and up-to-date traffic service vehicles is crucial for ensuring public safety on our roads, serving as the frontline defenders of law and order in traffic management. Equipped with advanced technology, these vehicles not only facilitate efficient law enforcement, but also plays a pivotal role in accident prevention and rapid response to emergencies. They are better equipped to address the evolving challenges of our roads today, including managing traffic congestion, monitoring speed limits, and enforcing safety regulations. Impressively, the Western Cape remains the only province with a 24/7 traffic service presence actively protecting our roads and reducing road accidents and road fatalities. Honourable Speaker, through you, Honourable Minister, what are the benefits of the technology in these vehicles? Example, how is the Mobility Department using technology to make our roads more safer? I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable America. I recognize the Honorable Christians.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I just want to ask the Minister, is the reports true in Eyewitness News to say the Western government confirms that 110 BMW vehicles purchased in 2022 were never used? So I want to know from the Minister, one, was the vehicles idled and was their time wasted? How long did it take for work to be done? And lastly, was it efficient and was it effective? So I've heard your answer about all the stages must go through, but according to this report, the vehicles were gathering dust and nothing was done to the vehicles. I want to know from you, is this statement true? Because that is what is out in the media. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Christians. Honorable Mvimbi, that's your next opportunity.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and also thank you very much to Honorable Christian in assisting me in holding the provincial minister to account. Unfortunately, I'm a bit disappointed that my friend over there that I hope he was also going to assist us in holding the executive to account and not ask sweetheart questions. Let me reiterate, Honorable Speaker, the ANC stance on this matter is that there is nothing to celebrate on the release of the first 31 vehicles. We do not celebrate mediocre. The provincial minister has failed the people of the province dismally with those vehicles still idling there. The continued idleness of these vehicles represents a missed opportunity and a failure on the part of the provincial government to efficiently utilize valuable resources. These vehicles were purchased without a well thought out plan, we believe, leading to fiscal dumping. This situation not only results in wasteful and fruitless expenditure by the provincial government, but also casts doubts on the DA's commitment to improving road safety in our province. In light of this concern, we demand immediate attention and scrutiny from the legislator. We must seek answers and hold the government accountable for the delay in the handover of these vehicles and the reason behind the 20-month dormancy of the remaining 100 BMW vehicles. It is our duty as public representatives of the people to ensure government resources are deployed effectively and in an organized manner to serve the best interests of our constituents and ensure the safety of our citizens on our roads. The safety of our community is paramount and we must act accordingly. We call upon the provincial government that is led by the DA to take immediate and decisive action to address these pressing issues. We cannot allow valuable resources to gather dust in government storages while the safety of our citizens is the risk. As the ANC, we demand transparency and accountability in the procurement process and the efficient utilization of this vehicle. We also request the Premier to take decisive action against the minister. If MEC's minister wasn't there, MEC Mackenzie could have been the weakest link. Honorable Speaker, Provincial Minister Mackenzie has opted for the service for a foreign company for the processing of these vehicles. The apparent preference for a Swiss company in the technology procurement process is also concerning, as it neglects our local businesses and job opportunities within our province. We know our friend on that side always prefer to have friends in foreign places and actually neglect their own people locally. We should prioritize the growth and support of our local industries while making decisions that truly benefit our province. The MEC must tell us why he preferred a foreign
Honourable
company
Mvimbi,
and
your
what are
time
the
has
total
expired.
costs associated with it.
Please conclude.
Concluded. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Mvimbi. I recognize the Honourable Minister, Minister Mackenzie.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And let me respond to the Honourable Member Mvimbi on some of the comments that he made. The rest I'm not going to respond to, but it's worth quoting the Honourable Mvimbi. He said, "We do not celebrate mediocrity. Indeed, we do not celebrate it, not in the sight of the House. Because if you can't even deliver pension funds to ailing seniors in this country, you don't even deserve to use the word mediocrity. It is really pathetic and sad on a day that we debate pensioners waiting since 3 o'clock in the morning, unable to afford 20 rand. I got police call me from people to ask me for 5 rand to buy a loaf of bread. That a member of this house have the audacity to use the word mediocre.
Honourable Minister, please take your
He should
seat.
not even own that word.
Honourable Minister, please take your seat. Honourable Mbimbi, is that a point of order?
Certainly.
What's your point of order?
It's mediocre is not my language, so it's therefore not gonna be my word. But Honourable Speaker, on a point of relevance to the topic, we are talking about the BMWs and non-use thereof. So we'd like
Thank you very
the
much.
Minister to concentrate on that. And also the issue of SASSA is a national government competence.
Okay, you wanted Honourable Mvimbi, Honourable Mvimbi, Honourable Mvimbi. You rose on a point of order. I allowed you that opportunity. You do not need to justify your. But also members, I'm on the floor. Honourable Mvimbi, you rose on a point of order. I allowed you an opportunity. You do not need to justify your point of order. The Honourable Minister has got 4 minutes in which he can respond. I cannot dictate from the chair how the Minister should respond. Minister, you may continue.
Thank you, Chairperson. I was going to go. I'm just trying to give context as to why the Honourable Mvimbi and his party should be the last person to give me advice. In fact, the day they like me, that means I'm doing something wrong. The more they hate me, the more that means I'm doing something right. Because the poor standards, non-existent standards from a government that can't deliver pension funds, I will gladly accept criticism for them. So thank you very much for that. Honourable members, I'm going to the last 2.5 months, we've given extensive written answers and verbal answers on this topic, and it starts by reading. And thank you, Honorable America, because you've read that statement with the facts. Clearly, other members did not. And that's where the word mediocrity is applicable. Thank you for not being mediocre in reading those statements. The others didn't bother.
Order, members.
Honorable Speaker, GMT produces vehicles in batches based on needs as original equipment manufacturers who supply vehicles via the national transversal contract signal available to the market. As a result of global supply chain challenges, which we've said here before, stemming from the impact of COVID-19 that continues to plague the automotive industry, GMT and most fleet vehicle owners, anyone that buys a thing called a car, struggled with keeping up with the planned cycle of vehicle replacement. This in turn resulted in challenges with vehicle storage space as manufacturers starting producing and delivering vehicles once again. It should be noted that the market has not yet fully recovered and that certain makes and models of vehicles are still not available during 2023. It's not a Cape Town thing. It's not a Western Cape thing. It's a global thing. If you lived on this planet, you would have known it. Once vehicles are delivered to BMG by vehicle manufacturers, the preparation process was initiated by GMT to ready to deliver the vehicles for its intended process. The vehicle manufacturer procurement and conversal project suffered a setback as a result of a fire that gutted Renesas, a Japanese technology company in a place called Japan, and one of the car industry's biggest computer chip suppliers. The fire had a massive impact on its ability to fulfill orders to companies such as Motorola, which supplies digital radios for clients, including the Western Cape, part of this planet. We are not that unique. So the benefits, Honorable America, is high-performance vehicles that are not just ordinary sedans. They are specialized vehicles that have been converted and optimized with the rigors of traffic law enforcement on our provincial and national roads. They're equipped with cutting-edge in-vehicle technology, including automatic number plate recognition cameras, which interface directly with the national information traffic systems, providing officers with critical information within seconds. In fact, on the day of that fanfare launch, for which a member was not present, as the vehicle was standing there, they automatically picked up a vehicle that erred. That is the quality of technology that we use. And a member in this province, living in this province, would have known that indeed, we had a 30% reduction in road traffic fatalities over the last year on year. If you lived in this province, you'd have known we are the only province in the country.
Thank you very much, Minister. Your time has expired.
Traffic
Please
service.
conclude.
We indeed take it seriously The people in this province
Thank you
does
very
know
much,
it.
Minister.
Thank you.
Please take your seat. Thank you very much, honourable members. That brings us to the end of interpellations in terms of the rules. We now move on to questions as printed on the question paper in terms of Rule 202. Honourable members, I wish to remind you that once the honourable minister has started to reply to the oral question as printed on the question paper, honourable members must use the chat facility for the sitting of the House to indicate that they wish to ask a follow-up question. If you are online, honourable members, if you are in the chambers, please indicate to the table staff in order for us to recognise you. The first opportunity will be afforded to the member who posed the initial question, and the remaining 3 opportunities will then be to those members indicating that they so wish to do so. I recognise the honourable members. Before I recognise the Honourable Minister Allen, just for the record, we will now first deal with the questions that stood over from the sitting of Thursday, the 14th of September 2023, as agreed by the House. So the Honourable Minister, Minister Allen, that is question number 5 on the question paper.
Speaker, thank you so much for this particular opportunity and for also clarifying that a number of questions stood over. I can confirm that a key component during that particular MINMEC discussions, hence I was not able to be in the House, and where we were again able to, as a province, raise a key aspect that speaks directly to this particular question that the Honourable Christians have asked. But Speaker, I think it's very vital to address this question in detail, and I wish to confirm that the DA-led provincial government has implemented a host of interventions to combat GBV, which is a key priority. GBV remains one of the most dire and pressing issues across our entire country, as barely a week, Speaker, goes by whereby we do not hear of a woman or a child that has been brutally assaulted or murdered, or a young woman being raped. In recognition of the increased levels of GBV, the Premier of the Western Cape charged the Western Cape Minister of Social Development, Shana Fernandez, with being the lead in the province for gender-based violence. Her department is tasked with coordinating the development of the Western Cape Gender-Based Violence Implementation Plan, which I can confirm was adopted by the Provincial Cabinet. The Provincial Implementation Plan details each provincial department's interventions and measures. I think it's vital because this particular question speaks to that intervention plan and the role that each and every department has to play. And to touch, first and foremost, if I venture along the line, I see our Minister for Education. Education has established the Safe Schools toll-free number, which is 0800 45 46 47, where all teachers and learners can report any form.
Order, members. Minister, you can continue.
The provincial department's interventions cuts across the entire government. If I look at Minister for Education, which has established.
Honourable Minister, please take your seat. Honourable Minister, please take your seat. Honourable Dagmar, would you like to pose a question to the Minister? Can I get an indication? You can't do it now. I will recognise you when you have an opportunity.
It's a point of order.
What's your point of order, sir?
Speaker, my point of order is the continuing failure of the Office of the Speaker to uphold the provincial constitution.
That is not
provincial. It's a point of order because
that is not a point of order.
It is a point of order because when an MEC refers to a minister, then he's misleading the House because the constitution, which has been certified by the Constitutional Court, says a provincial minister. It's confusing when he says minister. We don't know.
Thank you very much, honourable members. Honourable Deputy Chief Whip, please take your seat. Honourable members, that is not a point of order. Honourable Minister, please continue. I will allow Honorable Dagmore to pose a question to you if you so wish, but that is not a point of order. Honorable Deputy Chief Whip, is that a new point of order? Honorable Minister, please take your seat.
Speaker, I rise on Rule 62. Even within the point of order, when Member Dagmore rose, he reflected upon you as your office. And the reflection upon holders of an office of this House that's dependent on this House is not allowed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Chief Whip. That's indeed the case. So, Honorable Dagmore, if I am not upholding the decorum or the rules of this House, there is rules for you to put in, move a substantive motion for my removal. But until such time, I will recognize, I don't need your warnings. Until such time, I'll recognize the Minister, Minister Allen.
Speaker, thank you so much. I would not.
On order, members.
I would not want to have any confusion in the House, so please allow me to again restate. The Premier has tasked the Provincial Minister in the Western Cape responsible for social development with the lead responsibility in the fight against gender-based violence. The Western Cape Provincial Minister's Department is responsible for coordinating the development of the implementation plan, and it has been adopted by the Provincial Cabinet led under Alan Winde. This provincial implementation plan details each and every provincial department's responsibility, and each and every provincial minister has a key role in this regard. If I look to my left, I see the Provincial Minister of Education, and Education has established a Safe Schools toll-free number, which is 0800 45 4647, where all teachers and all learners can report any form of abuse and receive advice and support with regards to gender-based violence. Furthermore, the curriculum from grades 4 to 12 equips and help our young learners on the dangers that's associated to committing gender-based violence. If I further look at the Department of Police Oversight and Community Safety, I can confirm that our interventions was extremely well received at our MINMEC just last week. Part of that interventions is that the Western Cape government has requested in writing in MINMEC to ensure that every gender-based violence desk that is situated at a South African police service must have certain specifications. I can confirm as of today and up until the implementation of the gender-based violence desk at every substation, the Western Cape has a desk at each and every station, but we have not been able to get sign-off from National with regards to the specifications. And the specifications of that particular desk will ensure that a victim or a survivor would be able to ensure that if he or she goes to a substation, get the necessary help and support when they do report such matters. We also have interventions with regards to our court watching brief and our work in terms of compliance with the implementation of the Domestic Violence Act, which sits within our directorate, the monitoring and evaluation, which compiled an awareness campaign around that, which is entitled Protect Yourself and Act with Courage to contribute towards attempts aimed at ending gender-based violence. Also, that particular pamphlet details the steps to follow when applying for a protection order with the Gender-Based Violence Command Center, which is a toll-free number at 0800 428 428. That pamphlet has also been distributed to all our Neighborhood Watch members, 17,500 across our you can check my notes. It says boldly and CPFs, but you interjected.
Honorable Minister, please do not directly address a member. Please speak to me.
Thank you, Speaker. I trust that the confusion has been eradicated, and myself and Member Dagmore appears to be on the same page, because just before Member Dagmore interjected, I would have said and CPFs. We work closely with our CPFs in the Western Cape together with Gauteng, have made sure that the funding that was allocated from national was a direct motivation from Western Cape and from Gauteng. And that particular 70 million rand, 12.7 million rand that landed in the Western Cape was towards making sure that gender-based violence is also tackled. And that speaks directly to the reporting of gender-based violence cases. I can also confirm that this government, in partnership with the Department of Health and the Department of Social Development, partners with the NPA in terms of the establishment of Tutuzela centers, and we have 8 here in our province. That particular center does amazing work in terms of advocating, but also making sure that victims do have access to information on where to report any form of gender-based violence or femicide. As a Western Cape government, as the provincial minister and many of my and all of my colleagues, we will continue to play our role in terms of tackling gender-based violence by making sure that a victim or survivor would have the courage, the support and the assistance to ultimately ensure that that particular case is not only handled properly, but that justice is served. We remain open to any further input and interventions that we will gladly take under consideration, because I firmly believe that everyone in this house clearly wants to eradicate gender-based violence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I recognize the Honourable Christians. I got Honourable Christians, Honourable Syed, and Honourable Bosman and Honourable Barnes. Those are the 4 opportunities.
Thank
That
you.
order.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the Minister for the question. Minister, the question is, what is your department doing? Right? You said about what the National Department doing, what other departments doing, because it's a serious problem. We saw, I don't know if you saw the statistics, you know, because of police mistakes, 77 cases were withdrawn of gender-based violence. So it's a major problem. I see there's measures and the desk you're talking about going forward. So I hope that will help. But of course, your department's role is now definite oversight to make sure that when our victims have the courage to go to a police station, that they are treated with dignity and respect, and that we do not have 77 cases of GBV
Honourable
violence.
Christians, I would just like to remind you, you must ask a follow-up question. You do not need to make a speech. Please get to your question.
Thank you, Speaker. Scrap off the roll because of mistakes of police. So that's why the question to you, Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister.
Thank you so much, Speaker. I wish to say thank you to the Honourable Christians for this particular question. I can confirm that the court watching brief, which I mentioned, I am delighted that I'm able to share further information in that regard. I think it's very important for this House to note that the court watching brief unit, an initiative of the Western Cape government, has now been adopted across our entire country as a result of the work that we are doing, as a result of our reports, but also the post-monitoring reports, because those post-monitoring reports details exactly what needs to be done on what particular case and what action should be taken against SAPS members that have failed in their duty. So in terms of the court watching brief, we monitor a number of cases. That cases ranges from gender-based violence to murder, attempted murder, or when someone is caught with an illegal firearm. We then compile a report and we list a number of inefficiencies. There's a number of categories, and the categories is that where the docket is not at court. Another category is where the witnesses has not been interviewed or summoned to be in court. Another matter is that where there is not enough evidence that were collected, even though the statements refer to evidence that were collected. But also, if the docket is just purely missing, what we then do in that particular case, we engage also with the NPA to ensure that those matters are re-enrolled onto the court roll so that justice can be served. And I think it speaks directly to the question that member Christians have asked, because if a female or any person loses hope in the criminal justice system, that person will be less likely to report any a matter of gender-based violence. So our court watching brief unit and the post-monitoring goes a very long way towards ensuring that those victims and survivors have the courage and we hold SAPS accountable. I also get a briefing with regards to steps taken against SAPS members. Just 2 weeks ago, I visited the one station that featured predominantly in that particular report because it was 12 particular cases at that one station. In my engagement with the head of detectives, it became again increasingly clear that the case to detective ratio was over 200. And those detectives are struggling, and then we take that particular matter again to national and to the provincial commissioner to ensure that those matters are addressed. So we will always be active in our court watching brief unit. And I can confirm 2 days ago, I was very blunt with our police commissioner when we addressed our post-monitoring report with him 2 days ago. And I said, and I asked, is this of value to the South African Police Service? Is this reports helping? And unequivocally, the police commissioner, together with 2 generals, instantly said yes. They echoed it keeps SAPS on their toes, but it also helps to ensure that any SAPS officer that is not doing his or her job will be held accountable. And I think it goes a long way. So the intervention of making sure that cases are reported, but also wanting to dig a little deeper into the whole of government, because this particular question stretches not only across what we are doing in our oversight, and I sincerely want to be held accountable for the oversight role that must lead to better service delivery. Otherwise, I will also then be at fault. But I would always want to ensure that the role that each and every department also plays, because it does take that whole of government. It takes everyone in this particular house, Speaker, to play a role to ensure that if we become aware of any particular matter, that we escalate that matter by the proper channels. And I would not want to read a message from this morning in one particular district and a discussion with Brigadier Hari, who is our FCS head in the province. And via the request from our office, an investigator at FCS went to a victim's home and took that particular victim to court to obtain a protection order, but also the assistance in terms of psychosocial assistance and support is being provided to that particular victim after we have received information with regards to gender-based violence. So we are always wanting to work with all stakeholders. We are not wanting a free pass, but we are also encouraging residents in the Western Cape, members of parliament, councillors, to ensure that if they become aware of any matter, to follow the proper channels, the hotline that I've indicated, help and assistance is available, the Tutuzela centers, because the more our females and men that are abused, if they seek the help, they will ultimately, to a large extent, become emboldened and help others break the cycle. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I recognize the Honourable Side.
Honourable Speaker, thank you very much, and thank you to the Minister, to the Provincial Minister for the response. Thank you to the Provincial Minister, my friend, the Honourable Allen, for the response. Now, can I just get a sense from the Honourable Minister, what role does his department play in working with safe schools? We spoke about safe schools. In working with the Safe Schools unit in order to ensure that they are more responsive. And if it's aware then of the case, and because I give an example, Hillside Primary School, Safe Schools has not been responsive. They call, they send all the information. To date, nothing has happened, not even a visit.
Question.
Is he aware of this? Thank you very much. And what are they doing? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to remind members, you must please ask a follow-up question. You are allowed one follow-up question as in terms of the rule. Minister, there was more than one question. I'm not going to dictate how you answer that, but just for the record, I have noted that.
Thank you so much, Speaker. I wish to appreciate this particular question. And Speaker, if I can be as transparent and as honest and as clear as possible. The Integrated Crime and Violence Prevention Strategy, which speaks directly to the Western Cape Safety Plan. Our safety plan, which was adopted in 2019, the National Integrated Crime and Violence Prevention Strategy was adopted in 2020. Those two plans ultimately speak to one another, and I firmly believe that we are on the right path. That plan speaks to a whole of government approach. I have the privilege of serving in this particular position, and I am also tasked with being the lead in terms of the safety priority. Education sits on that particular priority committee, and we have constant engagements in that regard. Just yesterday, I trust that Minister Side will be delighted to hear the following. There's one particular school that I know that he's familiar with in Elsies River. Just yesterday, the engagement between business, the engagement between the local councillor, but also education to ensure that certain interventions and certain measures are implemented at that particular school, where we have seen videos circulate on social media. We have seen and heard of rumors of behavior of learners, and it speaks to that whole of government approach. The same with the nationally adopted plan, which speaks to a broader scope of the role that parents need to play. So in our role, to directly answer, we work closely with the Department of Education. If we become aware of any matters that has not been taken up the seriousness that it deserves, we would be more than happy to make sure that those matters are addressed, because we would never want in this province or in any other province to have a education system that is not functional, or an education system where our learners are not adhering to a code of conduct. We would want to ensure that we step in immediately, and I would be more than happy to take that up and to raise it directly with the Provincial Minister for Education and via that particular priority committee. I think it's very important, the work that health is doing, to ensure that if a young person is born, help and assistance needs to be provided to that young person the first 1,000 days. It paves the way so that that person can ultimately go into the mainstream education, where that person and parents can get parenting programs, where we can then ultimately ensure that social development and the role that social development plays, because all those departments are key towards creating safer spaces, safer schools. I thank the honourable member for the question, and my communication lines remain open to ensure that we can address any pertinent and direct matters with any particular school. I can also confirm I have the full commitment from the Provincial Minister of Education that if any matter like that do come up, we will instantly, in our attempts, make sure that it is adequately addressed.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I now recognise the Honourable Bosman for a follow-up.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, through you. Minister, are you able to perhaps expand a bit more on the role that the victim support rooms play in the reporting of gender-based violence at police stations, and maybe outline some of the deficiencies in that system in the Western Cape?
Again, Honourable Minister, Honourable Members, you are allowed one follow-up question. Honourable Minister, I'm not going to dictate how you answer that. There was more than one question. Honourable Minister, over to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this question. It was, Speaker, it was 2 weeks into my appointment. I visited a certain South African Police Service station, and upon requesting to visit the victim empowerment room, I was informed that the key was missing. I then indicated that I will wait up until that particular key is found. 38 minutes later, the key was found, and when we entered the victim empowerment room, there was a bloody stained hoodie. And I can vividly see the hoodie still in front of me. That was in the victim empowerment room, stained with blood, and that left a smell that almost knocked us off our feet. I requested the information on why that particular victim empowerment room was locked, but also why there was a bloody stained hoodie in that particular victim empowerment room. I was informed that 10 months ago, a known gang member was stabbed and he was then taken into the victim empowerment room where there was a chair, a bed, and a couch. His hoodie was then removed, and when the ambulance came, he was escorted to the ambulance. I would assume after that, that particular victim empowerment room was locked. The register confirmed that it was actually 11 months ago, prior to my visit, when there was a last entry into the victim empowerment room. I have since then, Member Bosman, through you, Speaker, made it my mission that each and every announced, each and every unannounced visit I conduct at a SAP station, I will visit the victim empowerment room. We will check whether all the specifications have been met in that regard, but we will also ensure that the referral pathway is maintained at that particular victim empowerment room. To put it in plain terms, a person will approach the South African Police Service. They are a victim of gender-based violence. It's a female, potentially 40 years old. That particular person will then be escorted to our victim empowerment room that sits at the South African Police Service and will be offered assistance. They could potentially also be offered any further water or something to eat depending on the circumstances. So I triple check, Speaker, the rosters. I triple check whether we have sufficient volunteers at every victim empowerment room, because it speaks directly to assistance that is needed to be provided. We go further by making sure that should there be any gaps in the training of those volunteers that are working in our victim empowerment rooms, that they get the necessary help and assistance to be trained in a VEP. The VEP is also a key component towards making sure that the relevant SAPS officer has a high enough rank. Speaker, it's very clear that when we look at the Domestic Violence Act, the implementation thereof, our reports found that the coordinators of those particular programs is usually, prior to my appointment, was usually at the lowest level, at the constable level. When a constable, in real terms, needs to get information from a higher ranking officer, we have often seen that rank and file kick in and the assistance is not provided. Our reports, our intervention, and making sure that we have oversight ensures that a sufficiently ranked SAPS officer is actually the coordinator of that particular intervention or program, be it a victim empowerment room or the program. But the program also stretches beyond the work of just a physical building or a physical room. It also stretches through you to Member Bosman. It also stretches towards the programs that victim empowerment programs will undertake. Funding that we provide to CPFs, funding that CPFs also get from national government, support via the Police Commissioner's Office with regards to crime prevention, also speaks directly to the work that the victim empowerment coordinator at a local SAP station must undertake. Those include your public imbizos, it includes the school visits that is undertaken by crime prevention, but also the engagements that CPFs have with a number of entities and role players. To make it very clear, it could be in a local ward in Mitchell's Plain. That particular ward committee will have a number of responsibilities, be it in sport, education, food supply, or to look at the assistance that we need to provide in terms of of education. It will always be towards making sure that the victim empowerment room and the victim empowerment program is fully utilized and used to the best of that particular station's benefit. I can also confirm, and I would encourage members of this house to visit the Botasig police station. The Botasig police station has a state-of-the-art victim empowerment room. And at that particular station, we have a number of volunteers that are also actively playing their role. But at that particular victim empowerment room, there's a number of toys, educational toys that will help and assist a victim. There's also a number of soft equipment to help someone that goes through trauma, that will help someone to speak out or speak to someone, but also how the registers have been maintained. And any person on the committee that is conducting these oversights at SAP stations or visiting a VP, I would encourage you to continue checking the register. Continue to check the amount of volunteers. And should there not be enough volunteers at that particular SAP station to help in terms of the victim empowerment program, to make sure that the station commander is addressed in that regard, so that any victim, any survivor that enters a victim empowerment room will not only feel safer, but will feel that he or she is going to get the help and assistance that they need. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister, and I recognize Honourable Barnes for the final opportunity.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, it is the duty of a station commander to ensure that all stations have victim-friendly rooms. In the past, when the ANC governed, we ensured that all victim rooms have staff. In fact, they have key personnel staff. I want to ask from the MEC, why is he not making use of the safety plan to provide the recruitment of professional counselors and deploy them to police stations in the province, just like the ANC did in the past? Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Honourable Minister.
Thank you so much for that particular question. I would encourage Member Barnes, through you, Speaker, to once again support the Western Cape government and my colleagues on this side's view in terms of the equitable share. Should any further budget be derived or land within our department, the department that I'm leading, I would be more than happy to take such a matter into consideration. But as a government, we have been proactive. We have been proactive by making sure that the referral pathway and the role that social development plays in that regard is maintained. How it works, Speaker, is that someone is brutally raped, someone is assaulted, and it is 11 o'clock at night. Every SAP station will have a standby social worker on duty, a standby social worker that can be contacted should that particular station commander not do that. I want to know, because I would want to then hold that particular station commander accountable as well. And that is a professional service, and it speaks directly to the referral pathway, because we believe that social development has a key role to play, and that's why social development is the lead in the fight against gender-based violence. And Member Barnes is quite correct, Speaker, that our victim empowerment rooms often gets insufficient help, insufficient assistance. Hence, I always say this, once we enter into a particular precinct, into a particular station, we often see the leadership of the station commander, we often see the leadership of the sector commanders. And when we have proper, credible leaders at a local precinct, we actually see all components at that particular SAP station can function, especially the VP coordinator and that particular program and the interventions that they are rolling out. So we will always stick to making sure that referral pathways, which is a professional service, to our residents via social development, but we are always encouraging also NPOs that are doing amazing work alongside government. A number of NGOs and NPOs receive funding from this DA-led government, and many of those are within the gender-based violence by providing help and assistance. And those NGOs also play a vital role, and they also deliver a professional service to any person that may not have had any help before, considering that gender-based violence is rife. And I want to echo the following sentence. Even the work that the Tutuzela centers are doing, they have set the benchmark in terms of how professional services must be rendered, what must be done, but also making sure that there is a prosecutor available to speak to any victim or survivor. And those centers, like I've indicated earlier, is in partnership with the Department of Social Development and the Department of Health by making sure that those centers are fully functional and that a service can be rendered. So we are always looking towards making sure that any service here in the Western Cape should be done in a professional way with dedicated officers, and support staff that are there to ultimately ensure that young people, victims, seniors, any person that is a victim of crime in this particular province gets the help and assistance that they require.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, that brings us to the end of question number 5. We will now move on to question number 6 as printed on the question paper. I recognise the Minister, Minister Allen.
Thank you so much, Speaker. Yes, the department does have programs in place to educate women on how to report incidents of gender-based violence. The Department of Police Oversight and Community Safety supports Department of Social Development as far as our budget allows. During the 2022-2023 financial year, the department embarked on a gender-based violence first responder 2-day training program in the Delft area where 25 members of our neighborhood watches were accredited with training in first responders. The training attendees included female participants. As part of the training was also on how to report incidents of gender-based violence. This was in partnership with the Department of Social Development and various NGOs, the Trauma Center, Triangle Project, and Rape Crisis. During the current financial year, the department facilitated a 5-day gender-based violence program to the Mitchells Plain Community Police Forum. Participants from various community organizations, including neighborhood watches, there were 30 participants in that particular case. The training of attendees included female participants, and the training included how to report incidents of gender-based violence. This training was done in partnership with NGOs in the Mitchells Plain area as well, with regards to dealing with the reporting of gender-based violence. Both programs were well received by all participants. As a department, we further give input into CPFs and the programs that the CPFs undertake. I provide the CPFs at a provincial level with our key priorities, and our key priorities, like I've indicated in the very beginning, gender-based violence and combating gender-based violence is a key priority. So even in our engagements with CPFs to ensure that programs around the reporting of any particular crime, including gender-based violence, is also communicated effectively via all our stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. I recognise the Honourable Christians.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you for the Minister for that answer. Minister, you mentioned Mitchells Plain and Delft, 2 areas in the metro. I know in the rural areas, it's hard for females to report. So did you do any interventions out in the rural areas and not just in the metro? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Christians. Honourable Minister.
Thank you so much. I have participated in interventions outside of the city of Cape Town. Not one particular program that was directly led by our department. I can confirm in the Begrafie area, in the West Coast, matters with regards to gender-based violence and interventions, but it's in partnership with the municipality. I've not added in the numerous engagements, the numerous public meetings where gender-based violence often comes up, because otherwise I would have been reading an entire book. Last week, I was again in the West Coast and I was in an area called Hopefield, and gender-based violence again featured prominently. We were together with the South African Police Service, which included our district commissioner and our station commander. So a number of initiatives, even though the department will not be the lead in terms of arranging and organizing, but we would give input and we would actually be present. I have made a number of colleagues. I've made a number of colleagues in this department extremely upset. I've made them so upset because we have demanded and that we have instructed to ensure that, that this department plays its role at any safety-related matter. So CPF meetings, our officials and our field workers are working extremely hard. So even though a particular event engagement is not directly arranged by the department, we partake. And we partake all over the entire province. I was 3 days ago in Beaufort West. And in Beaufort West, we handed over a number of resource equipment to the relevant neighborhood watch. And I can again confirm that hearing from Mayor Botha, I was delighted to hear from Mayor Botha, who is the Central Karoo District Mayor, literally echoing the same sentiments that we have been echoing about the Western Cape Safety Plan. And I was extremely delighted that even in that district, a key component on that agenda remains the implementation of our district safety plans with a key emphasis on key strategic points, and gender-based violence is one of them. And I can confirm at that particular district summit, we had Laingsburg. No, we had Laingsburg, yes. We had Prince Albert. We were in Beaufort and we didn't have Beaufort. The minister was with me. Minister McKenzie was with me. We were in Beaufort and we did not have Beaufort, but we had the district. But we had Laingsburg and we received updates with regards to the district safety plans. And I can confirm that that particular district has a safety plan. A key component of the safety plan is programs, interventions to eradicate gender-based violence. And I was delighted when Mayor Botha echoed how delighted she is with the safety plan and how the safety plan in the Central Karoo is working and how we need to work together towards making sure that we are fostering not only working relationships, but also holding each other accountable. And she was there for the entire day. And I do see across our country, across our province, the role that this Western Cape government is playing towards making sure that other provinces can also take a leaf out of our book. I was delighted when the KZN Premier visited less than a month ago. And part of that engagement also was very clear about the role that departments are needing to take in the fight against gender-based violence, and not to merely say it is one entity that is responsible. We would want to make sure that SAPs do the investigation, that investigations are not dropped, that that particular investigator has all the help and assistance, the work we do with our prosecutors and in engaging our DPP here in our province to ensure that we are able to help and assist. We can further also inform, I can also further inform this House that at my most recent engagement with correctional services, one particular matter that I placed squarely in front of Commissioner Klaas was the matter of our parolees and parolees being released into a community, often parolees that have committed heinous gender-based violence against community members, against females. One of the key things that we continue to raise in that space is the role that correctional services are needing to play in the rehabilitation of those offenders and making sure that certain offenders and category crime offenders must ultimately make sure that they are part of those rehabilitation programs, even in prison. Because if someone comes out and reoffend, it is ultimately never welcomed, and it should be condemned, because we are wanting to create a society where every key stakeholder plays a role. I can also confirm the work that Minister Brodel is doing alongside Minister Ivan Meyer, which is key, and Minister Anru Mare, which is key in terms of the faith-based organizations. When we engage those organizations, we are so aware that the influence that those particular entities, organizations have, be it in the Christian faith or in the Muslim faith or any other faith, we want to make sure that their influence can which stretches into their congregations, into their meeting rooms, and the message must always be clear that gender-based violence will never be condoned. It should be condemned, and that every person must ultimately make sure that they play a role towards making sure that there is no hint of gender-based violence whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I recognize the Honourable Bosman.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, to the Minister through you. Minister, can you tell us whether the 2017 policy by SAPS on reducing barriers to the reporting of sexual offences and domestic violence have been successful in the Western Cape, and whether police stations in the Western Cape are adhering to that 6-point plan?
Thank you very much, Honourable Bosman. Again, Honourable Minister, there's more than one question. I'm not going to dictate how you answer them.
I would not want to miss the question. If I can just request that the Honourable Member repeat.
Sure, Honourable Member, please repeat. Can the table staff just stop the clock?
I'd like to know whether the Minister can tell us whether the 2017 SAPS policy on reducing barriers to the reporting of sexual offences and domestic violence, is it working in the Western Cape?
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister.
Thank you so much for this particular question. I would not want to get it wrong, because our implementation plan, Cabinet in the year 2019 at a national level adopted a gender-based violence implementation plan, which each and every province then also had to implement. Like I've indicated earlier on, Speaker, to Member Bosman, the Western Cape government has adopted our provincial implementation plan to fight gender-based violence. When we look at our oversight role, I can confirm that we are making headway, we are making great progress in that regard, because we are wanting to ensure that our SAPS members are trained, that they are equipped, and that where there's any inefficiencies in any particular process, be it lodging a matter, a detective not being able to take a proper statement, or if there is any hint that that particular person has not received the necessary help and care from a South African Police Service member. So we are closely monitoring those interventions from our side, and I would be more than happy should Member Bosman request that particular question in writing to submit it via a parliamentary reply, so that we can extensively respond in that regard, by making sure that this House is then also fully aware of those interventions.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I recognize the Honourable Kasim.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, can I ask whether these programs are only directed to women in communities, or also to men who must be educated about the dangers and social ills associated with gender-based violence, whether they are offenders or not? What programs are there for men specifically in these communities?
Thank you very much, Honourable Kasim. Honourable Minister.
Thank you so much, Member Kasim, for that particular question. It is one key aspect that you are mentioning, and I want to say thank you for raising it, because we have seen when we have men's dialogue And from the South African Police Service side, I have participated in a number of men's dialogue where we discuss these particular matters, and it ranges on a two-pronged approach. On the one hand, that predominantly men are the perpetrators, and we need to address men in a way where we can ultimately foster a change in behavior. The second prong in that regard is that we know that at times men are also victims. And to eliminate any stigma, to eliminate any fears of being stigmatized, but also wanting to avoid embarrassment, many men do not report any matter with regards to gender-based violence. I can confirm that during the last release of the crime stats, it again became very evident that when we looked at the breakdown between sexual offences, gender-based violence, there is an increase in terms of attacks on men and gender-based violence specifically against men as well. But we will continue from our side to make sure that we participate as a department with the South African Police Service. And I think it's very important to highlight the following. I know that we as a department speaker have done so much in our oversight role. We have done so much by making sure that we are stepping in, we are stepping up. The LEAP program, which in part has been adopted by the provincial government in Gauteng in their own skewed way. But Speaker, this department that I have the privilege of leading have stepped up. We have done so much, and I'm delighted when I hear questions are phrased in a certain way. What is your department doing? Because at times it might not be directly my department, but it must be where the safety lead, which I have the honor of having at the moment, engage other departments around the programs that they are doing. I've done a number of events and engagements with social development where we are there, we are present, our officials are there, with education, with national government. And whenever we have a men's dialogue, and the last men's dialogue that I actively participated in was in Khayelitsha. And at that particular event, we had over 1,200 men, but also the budget that was derived from the South African Police Service for that particular men's dialogue was also key towards where we needed it to happen. Because at that particular quarter, Khayelitsha was the top ranking station in terms of gender-based violence. And then also, even if we participate in our bilateral discussions with the city of Cape Town, we ensure that certain priorities that this province have undertaken, and I want to emphasize those priorities again, it's safety. Safety remains a priority, and in safety, there's a number of key priorities like gender-based violence that we will continue to advocate for. But secondly, also, it's jobs. And thirdly, when we look at where our country is in terms of electricity and the lack of electricity has contributed to such a lot of social ills increasing, gender-based violence increasing, and SAPS is on record by saying that at certain precincts, we have seen that during load shedding, crime increases, which includes gender-based violence. So that is priorities that this government have undertaken. Each and every provincial minister that is sitting here is attached to a particular priority. We serve on a number of priorities as well, and we work closely together because the one thing that irks us, the one thing that upsets us is that when there is a silo approach to the work that we are needing to achieve, we know that safety is everyone's responsibility. Each and every department has a role to play to ensure that a young person from growing up to the day that person passes away should be where that person has opportunities, has everything in their way of life to be a constructive citizen in our country. So we will definitely, from our side, directly to Member Kasim, any other stakeholder, we engage, but we also engage in a very constructive way but also depending on budgets and where certain interventions are happening so that we can engage in those men's dialogue as well. And to any man that is currently listening to me or that might be listening to this particular reply, I would want to say to that man, should he feels that there is stigma attached, if he is being abused, if he is a victim, I would encourage him to reach out to the South African Police Service, to reach out to a Tutuzela Center so that he can get the help and assistance that he requires. Minister Fernandez took us into confidence by explaining the trauma associated to being a survivor. And we would never want any child, any woman, or any man be a victim of gender-based violence in this province or in any other province here in our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, are there any further follow-ups? No further follow-ups. That brings us to the end of question number 6. We now move on to question number 7. I recognize the Honourable Minister, Minister Allen.
Thank you so much, Speaker. If I can just, with permission, have a little water and be in unity with Member Barnes as he is also drinking
Can I
water.
please ask that the table staff stop the clock? Thank you very much. You may continue, Honourable Minister. You may.
The Head of Department, Advocate Pillay, our Chief Director and Director Security Risk Management attends daily provincial JOC meetings and provided regular updates on, amongst other incidents, developments and arrest. I have also been kept updated and in accordance to my role in this particular cabinet, kept the Premier and the cabinet members abreast of the situation. There were daily cabinet meetings chaired by the Premier, where in the Department of Police Oversight and Community Safety, Mobility and Local Government briefed the Premier and provincial ministers on the status of the strike action and integrated response of all agencies to address the situation. Point number 2. LEAP officers were deployed to areas experiencing flare-ups within the priority area to support the South African Police Service. LEAP officers continue to work hand in hand with the South African Police Service, strengthening their hand in efforts to combat all forms of lawlessness, regardless of who the offender might be. Our LEAP officers will continue to be deployed to areas based on the data and evidence and where the need is the greatest. Our LEAP officers are working tirelessly to ensure greater safety across our province. This particular strike action that we saw during the taxi unrest is one that we would never want to see again, where 6 members, including an international foreigner, was murdered. So we were very clear from a cabinet point of view by briefing the cabinet, the Premier chairing that particular meeting, but also getting the South African Police Service into the room so that not only be kept abreast, but that we can ultimately make sure that should there be any resources or a lack of resources, that if a municipality or our department needs to step in, we can do it on a quick basis. The question is also filled with some offences. The specific question in terms of homes at night, and if the member has any information to back up, in my view, a perceived allegation, I would make it my mission to make sure that those matters are investigated so that any person that did not do his or her work will be held accountable so that we can get to the bottom of it. Because I wouldn't want, in all that I do, have reputational damage on the SAPs or reputational damage on LEAP or CPFs or neighborhood watch members. When we address certain matters, it's actually to strengthen their hand, to make sure that the service is professional, So I am looking forward to hearing inputs from the relevant member with regards to the specific question, so that we can tackle matters in a way where we see safer communities all across Cape Town and the Western Cape. Thank you.
Honorable Barnes.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I must say I appreciate the effort of the MEC saying that I can come with information. If I have at hand, I will definitely do it. So my question, Chair, will be in the light of the fact that the LEAP officers have been used in the past in persecution of poor informal settlements. Is there any steps that have been taken by the MEC to prevent the use of LEAP officers by JP Smith for things that are outside of their mandate? Can the MEC clarify the checks and balances that are in place to prevent the abuse of power and ensure that the deployment of LEAP officers is inconsistent with the scope of the safety plan? Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister, again, that is more than one question. I'm not going to dictate to you how you need to answer that question. Please bear in mind there's 20 seconds left for questions. So over to you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you so much for this particular question. I am going to try to keep a straight face in answering it. This Parliament, Speaker, and the committee directly.
Honorable Minister, I'm really sorry to do this, but I'm going to draw your attention to that the time has expired, so please conclude.
If I receive any information with regards to a politician that is dictating where LEAP must be, I would need that information so that it can be verified. Our department, in terms of the payment
Thank you
transfer
very much,
agreement,
Honorable Minister. Please take a seat. The time has expired.
This government. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, that is the end of questions for oral reply. Outstanding replies will be printed in Hansard. We now move on to statements by members in terms of Rule 145, and I recognize the DA.
Honorable Speaker, this past weekend saw flooding devastating our city and rural towns all across the province. Various roads have been washed away. Up to 12,000 people have been affected, and an unknown number of individuals have unfortunately passed away. The Western Cape government activated the Provincial Disaster Management Centre on Sunday after the South African Weather Services confirmed that the approaching storm will be more severe than what was initially anticipated. The DA in the Western Cape warmly welcomes and appreciates the proactive approach that has been so far taken by the Department of Local Government, Environmental Affairs and Development Planning in ensuring that communities receive aid and that our citizens' lives are protected. We would like to further acknowledge and thank all other stakeholders who are providing assistance, cooking meals, and delivering groceries. These actions warms our hearts, and a whole of society approach is exactly the approach we need to be taking during the floods. Honorable Speaker, while commendable progress has so far been made with various roads being reopened and mop-up operation underway, these events highlighted the need for this province to continue investing in early warning infrastructure and ensure new infrastructure is designed with adjusted climate change parameters in mind. While it is still too early to calculate the cost of the storm, if viewed in the context of the June floods and the recent coastal damage due to storm surges, this is becoming a very expensive winter for the Western Cape. The disaster response of the Western Cape government to the severe weather has since shifted from saving lives to recovery and humanitarian aid coordination. The DA, alongside the Western Cape government, will continue assisting various communities.
Thank you. Honourable Member, please conclude.
I thank you.
Thank you very much. I recognize the ANC. Honourable Dugmore.
Thank you, Speaker. As the ANC, we welcome the setting up of the Legislature Ad Hoc Committee on the energy crisis. The energy crisis facing our country is very serious, and what is needed is a cooperative approach to seek solutions. What is clear, however, is that the Ad Hoc Committee is choosing to make cheap politics and not operate as a non-partisan committee of the House. Ultimately, we do need a just transition to an energy mix which has more renewables and less fossil fuels. However, the DA in this committee is hiding the fact that the DA City of Cape Town has imposed a surcharge above what NERSA has set, not only for this year, but also for last year. In 23, NERSA determined an increase of 15.1% for Eskom supplied electricity to municipalities. The DA set an increase of 17.6%. This is 2.5% more. Then also in 2022, NERSA determined an increase of 7.47%. The city increased the price by 9.6%, 2% more than NERSA. The DA city has thus charged 4.5% more than the NERSA rate over the last years. Now, the problem is that despite the ANC having proposed that both NERSA and the mayor of the city of Cape Town are called to the ad hoc committee, this has not happened. While the DA chooses to attack the Minister of Electricity, they are penalizing the poor by imposing surcharges on electricity. This is unlawful. The National Treasury have confirmed that the DA is doing what they are doing has no basis in legislation. The courts themselves have dismissed with costs the city's urgent application to set aside the NERSA tariff. The DA in the province are scared of the DA in the city. They are not prepared to call out this unlawful and anti-poor behavior by the city. And we also know that the committee itself refuses to condemn the practice by the DA in the city to deduct money from those buying prepaid electricity if they are in arrears for other accounts.
Thank you very much.
So
Your time
what
has
ad hoc committee on energy?
Thank you very
is
much.
that
Your time has expired. I recognize the EFF.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, on the 2nd of October, the EFF, together with the Western Cape taxi industry, will engage in a provincial shutdown and a march in the Beni Municipal Complex to demand the immediate release of all taxis that have been frivolously and unjustly impounded by the racist and draconian city of Cape Town under Jordan Hill-Lewis, with the recurring theme that the struggle of the taxi industry is the struggle of the poor and the working class. The shutdown will be comprehensive and will also bring to light society's concerns stemming from taxi passenger harassment at the hands of law enforcement officials, the ever-increasing gangsterism in the province, social ills associated with drugs and alcohol abuse, collapse of service delivery in the province, especially towards the poor, high unemployment rates, unlawful evictions, racism, high crime rates, electricity tariff increases, among others. We further call upon community members of this province to join this progressive march, which is intended against a racist government which does not care about the needs of the poor, black, coloured and Indian population in this province. It is in times like these where the community of this province must stand together and face a common enemy made in the form of this racist DA government, which only serves the interests of whites and the rich. Proper service delivery, meaningful jobs, and proper security are only reserved for the whites in this province who are made privileged at the expense of other racial groups. The state funds, which should be on everyone, are channeled to services which only assist whites in this province. We cannot remain idle anymore and tolerate orchestrated injustices from a white government, which is trying by all means to uphold the legacy of colonialism and apartheid. We are also aware that the pretentious city of Cape Town is now planning to host an urban mobility summit exactly following March the 3rd and 4th October, and where they will be featuring the taxi industry as part of the agenda to formalize it. The reality is that this DLA city of Cape Town is doing everything in its power to destroy the taxi industry and promote its bus service, My City, and the white-owned Golden Arrow bus services. In conclusion, Speaker, the EFF remains the vanguard of the poor and the working class, and it will do everything in its power to protect the
Honourable Member.
interests
Your
of the
time is up.
people.
Thank you very much. I now recognise the Democratic Alliance.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, over the weekend, we celebrated Heritage Day, a day that brings all of us together to appreciate the incredible mix of cultures and heritages we have right here in South Africa. These differences, like threads in a woven fabric, make our country stronger when we embrace them. Sadly, while we were celebrating the richness of our culture and diversity, the Western Cape was hit by some of the worst flooding it's seen in a long time. This floods caused significant damage to important infrastructure, left people stranded, and tragically led to the loss of lives. Now, as residents of the Western Cape, we need to come together just like we did on Heritage Day. We must lend a helping hand and work together to rebuild our cities using a united approach that involves everyone in our society. We must acknowledge the diverse group of individuals and organizations that have contributed to emergency and relief services across our province so far. These efforts encompass not only the generosity of ordinary citizens who have prepared meals, provided financial support, donated groceries, and offered invaluable assistance such as accommodation and transport, but also the dedicated efforts to our first responders who risk their lives daily to save our lives. They are heroes, and we are truly grateful for all they do for us. By working hand in hand, we can rebuild and restore dignity to the people of the Western Cape who have lost so much due to this flooding. Let's stand together and make a difference in their lives. A whole of society approach is what we need. Ubuntu is what we need, and is what we need during this crisis. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I now recognise Good.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Most DA members discount what I say in this House as coming from the new kid on the block. And my hope is never to lose sight of that part of me. I think most of the members in this House have forgotten how they got here and why. We stand and speak in this House on behalf of those we are again trying hard to convince to return us here next year. If civilian replacements who voted for us communicate and act towards one another, given the opportunity, would DA supporters object every ANC motion proposed just because it comes from the ANC and vice versa? Because that is what we do, often to the detriment of those who we represent. Politicians can learn a great deal from our Springbok rugby team. They have already triumphed in my eyes. They have set an example for all of us and shown us the power of inclusivity and common cause. A pair of white Afrikaner coaches, a Xhosa-speaking captain, and a mixed masala of players, and a sprinkling of gold dust provided by the Boland boys, similar to the composition of this House. But when they line up to sing the national anthem, they all one color. The Springboks are teaching us which we as politicians would do well to understand. If I had to arrange for a top brass of the DA to play a rugby match against ANC or EFF against the Freedom Front Plus, with the exception of an odd quota player, the two matches will still be black versus white. Only when we as politicians start acting in a manner that our rugby players act, bringing all our people in as equals, we will service the mandate we have been given to bring about the stability and contentment that fairness brings, and with it real hope for a better, more inclusive and successful future. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I now recognise the ACDP.
Thank you, Speaker. Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the Western Cape Education Department is still finding our learners to place learners close to their homes. The problem is that engaging with people in the communities, it is difficult to see how people are placed, students are placed outside of the area where they live. Let me give an example. I've been in Mitchells Plain for this week. A lady, a pupil staying in Rocklands, Mitchells Plain, gets placed in Tafelsig. The mother said to me, I can barely afford food on my table, but it's 230 Rand per week to get my child to school. And this is unacceptable. The Western Cape Education Department talks about the retention rate, but this is how we're going to lose our learners. I don't think they understand the difference between Rocklands and Tafelsig. And I can go on and on. The other lady I engaged with was a lady that said she moved from Primrose Park in July of this year to Mitchells Plain. And the children, 3 children, she went to the school, they could not be placed. A whole year wasted. So I really, and I want the minister to look at this, because we are losing pupils because they cannot get to school. And this week, the mother's got 230. Next week, she does not have 230. What does he do? The child stays at home. So it's a problem. And I'm asking the minister, I've mentioned it before, that we give preference to learners in the area that's closest to them and not outside of the area. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I recognise the ANC.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I rise today, Deputy Speaker, to acknowledge the presence of the young Palestinian academic and activist, Mr. Alaga, Ihab Alaga, who joins us in the gallery today. Mr. Alaga's presence here today marks an important development in the deep relations between South Africans and Palestinians. Recently, the African National Congress-led national government announced that Palestinian passport holders will no longer require a visa to visit South Africa. Under the new regime, Palestinian citizens will be granted entry visas at the airports, ports, and border crossings into South Africa for a period of 90 days. Commenting on this decision by the South African government, the Palestinian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Riyad al-Maliki, welcomed the move on behalf of the people of Palestine and acknowledged the message of solidarity by South Africa for Palestinians this move sent. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the decision, however, is long overdue. Today, 75 years after the Nakba, over 6 million Palestinians still live in exile or as refugees. Today, 75 years later, the call of the United Nations General Assembly 194, which affirms the rights of all Palestinians to return to their homelands, must continue to echo throughout the power-making chambers of this world. Today, after 67 years of illegal apartheid occupation, we must continue to insist on a peaceful, just, and prosperous settlement in the Middle East, which has as its aims the return of all Palestinians to their homeland and the establishment of an independent, free state of Palestine with East Jerusalem as its capital. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I now recognise the Democratic Alliance.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. SASSA has once again been in deep crisis with the disbursement of social grant payments. It follows 3 weeks of strife for pensioners and people with disabilities who could not access their grant payments via SASSA's post-bank payment system. The shortcoming of the post-bank system era prevented the poor and vulnerable of a country from accessing their only source of income. This left families unable to buy necessities such as food and electricity. However, this is nothing new and has been an ongoing issue since last year. There is an urgent need for an effective social grant payment system, one that protects the dignity of grant recipients and are free from corruption and poor management. Last week, I invited SASSA Western Cape to the Standing Committee on Social Development for an urgent briefing to explain the current issues with the payment of social grants, in particular in the Western Cape, the problems with pay points and the role of the Post Office in all of this. This request for a briefing follows the revelation that despite a chorus of apologies by Minister Zulu for post-bank payment issues, the Department of Social Development apparently returned over 15 billion rand of social relief distress grants to the National Treasury in the past financial year. This comes as thousands who applied for the 350 grant have not received it. The department said it could not locate SRD grant applicants through their phones. However, no other alternative options were used to reach these applicants. While the DA in the Western Cape are tirelessly trying to improve and better the social and economic conditions of our residents, our efforts continue to be hindered by these kinds of challenges caused by the national government failures. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. I recognise Freedom Front Plus.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the Freedom Front Plus believes that what South Africa is currently witnessing is an ANC who has failed to govern effectively as a political party within a democratic state and a capitalist economy. They remain a revolutionary socialist movement still clinging to Marxism. We believe that ANC's ultimate objective is the total destruction of South Africa's capitalist system by imposing the most heavy taxes on the middle and upper middle classes and exempting the rest. They want a classless society. That's the ANC's ultimate objective. And the total dependence of the masses on the government grants to keep them state-dependent and loyal voters forever and ever. SOEs are bankrupt, but commercialization or privatization is not considered by the ANC, even at the expense of job losses and rocketing unemployment. Then we have land expropriation, the new health bill, and cadre deployment are all part of this bromance between Russia's President Putin and Xi Jinping of China to establish South Africa as a communist satellite of Russia. The Freedom Front Plus believe that only self-determination for the Western Cape can save this province. We need to rid this land of the ANC. The ANC act like a great sixth child attempting to write a university paper on economics. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I now recognise Al Jamar.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, the first chapter of the Holy Quran continues. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Kalla innal insana la yatgha. No, but indeed man transgresses. Ar-ra'ahu istaghna. Because he sees himself self-sufficient. Inna ila rabbika ruj'a. Indeed, to your Lord is the return. Ara'ayta alladhi yanha. Have you seen the one who forbids? Abadan idha salla. A servant when he prays. Ara'ayta in kana ala al-huda. Have you seen if he is upon guidance? Aw amara bit-taqwa. Or enjoins righteousness. Ara'ayta in kadhaba wa tawalla. Have you seen if he denies and turns away? Alam ya'lam bi anna Allah yarah. Does he not know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees? I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much. I recognise the Democratic Alliance.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, last week the Western Cape Provincial Economic Review and Outlook for 2023 was revealed, and this revealed that the Human Development Index for the Western Cape have improved over the last decade, indicating progress in well-being, education, healthcare and living standards. It was further revealed that this is occurring despite the unprecedented in migration. The HDI is a measurement of a country's or region's human development in health, education and income per capita. It has three basic dimensions of human development: long health and healthy life, knowledge and a decent standard of living. Further, 4 indicators are used to calculate the index life expectancy at birth, mean years of schooling, expected years of schooling, and gross income per capita. Currently, while South Africa stands at 0.64 as at 2021, the Western Cape has a higher and thus more positive outlook at 0.74. Further, the payroll reveals that the learner retention rate in primary schools in the Western Cape have increased 10 percentage points from 83% in 2018 to 93% in 2022, and that learner retention in high schools have increased 6 percentage points from 66% in 2018 to 72% in 2022. Despite the economic challenges we face, such as unemployment, load shedding, and crime, the Western Cape province continues to work towards creating an environment for every person in our province to flourish, and we will not stop there. I thank you.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of statements. In terms of Rule 145(6), I now give one or more members of the Executive an opportunity to respond to the member statements. I recognise the Honourable Minister Bradell.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Honourable Deputy Speaker, what the Honourable Dartmoor didn't say is that NERSA increased the electricity tariffs by 18.65% and by 12.2%. That's the only disgrace here. It's an ANC government that fails this country. They bankrupt Eskom and they're busy bankrupting. They're busy bankrupting our country. NERSA increased 18.65% to Eskom, and they expect the city to increase by 15%. That's the disgrace, nothing else. Honourable Chairperson, and to the City of Cape Town and the taxi dispute, the City of Cape Town only try one thing, and that's to ensure safe public transport to the communities. And therefore, the City of Cape Town and Minister Mackenzie are busy negotiating with the taxi industry to ensure a safe public transport. That's the only dispute. Thank you, Honourable Deputy.
Thank you very much. Are there any further? There are. I recognise you, Minister Mania.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I'd like to thank the Honourable Deirdre Bartman for her very positive comments on learner retention in our province. The Honourable Furlong Christians will be aware, given the fact that he is a veteran of the Education Committee, that the education system is under massive admissions pressure. And for that reason, of course, it is not always possible for us to accommodate learners at either their school of choice or indeed the school which is closest to them. But certainly, as I've said to the honourable member before, I would really appreciate it if he would furnish me with the details or the relevant details of the learners in question so that we can look at finding a solution together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further comments or statements by the ministers? No, I take it not. That brings us to the end of member statements. We now move over to notices of motion. In terms of Rule 151, all notices of motion by members are required to be delivered to the Secretary for placing it on the order paper. These motions have been duly submitted and published on the order paper below the line. We now move to motions without notice. I would like to inform you that in terms of Standing Rule 150, pertaining to motions without notice, condolence and congratulatory was submitted to the Programming Authority prior to this plenary on the 15th of August 2023. Members are also reminded that the motions without notice pertaining to congratulatory and condolence will not be allowed in the sitting that have not been processed by the Programming Authority. I have been informed that in the Programming Authority meeting on the 15th of August 2023, political parties did submit the names of honourable members in the desired order of speaking and who had wished to move a motion without notice in the sitting of this House. I will therefore, just for noting and for the purpose of the minutes, call out the honourable members whose names have been accordingly been submitted and approved. The following member motions have been approved by the Programming Authority as follows. But before I list the names, can I just confirm with the table staff that the 15th of August 2023 is not correct? Can I have the date if that's 20? Okay, for the correction and for the order of Hansard, this is accordingly that the plenary, the Programme Authority was on the 26th of September 2023. Apologies for that error. So according to the 26th of September, the following have been approved. Honourable Bosman, Honourable Maseko, Honourable Berncase, Honourable Kama, Honourable Sayed, Honourable Sayed, Honourable Nkondlo, and Honourable Kama. I now put the motions duly submitted and approved by the Programming Authority to the House. Are there any objections? No objections. Agreed to. The motions will appear in the minutes of the proceedings and in Hansard in each individual member's names as if that member had read them out aloud. I now afford the opportunity to members to move motions without notice as per Standing Rule of 152D. This could also include motions without notice that were not approved of in the Programming Authority meeting. And please be reminded that the 30 minutes as per the standing rules apply. I'll now recognise the Honourable Bosman.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I move without notice that this House takes note of the Cultural Affairs Awards that took place on the 26th of September 2023. The awards honored individuals and organizations who have made exceptional contributions in the areas of arts, culture, heritage, language, libraries, archives, museums, heritage, and geographical names. And that this House further notes that the winners shine as a beacon of hope for communities throughout the province. They have done tremendous work in their respective fields. I so move.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? No objections. Agreed to. I recognize the Honourable Murray.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I move without notice that the House notes the lack of transparency on the steps taken to protect the over 136,000 jobs in the Western Cape directly affected by the renewal of the African Growth and Opportunity Act from the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition himself, Ibrahim Patul, during a briefing to the NCOP this week. That the House further notes that this was a crucial meeting and it was cut short without an opportunity for members of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament to fully get clarity on their many needs and concerns regarding AGOA. I so move.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion being moved? There are objections. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I recognize you again, Honourable Murray.
Thank you. I move without notice that the House notes with disappointment that the Department of Home Affairs has still not implemented a remote working visa and is unable to provide any indication of when this will be done. That the House notes further that the remote working visa is a guaranteed gateway of job creation, and it was announced almost 2 years ago by the President himself. That the House further notes that the lack of urgency in finalizing this visa is typical of an ANC national government's lackluster approach to job creation. I so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion being moved? There are objections. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I recognize the Honourable Christians.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes between October 2022 and March 2023 that 283 criminal cases were dropped from the court roll due to police mistakes. Includes this total of 77 cases of GBV reported by women. Notes that these are administrative errors that could have been avoided. That these errors are a glaring indictment of SAPS in the Western Cape. It points out the level of inefficiency evident at police stations. SAPS stands accused of having failed the women in GBV cases. 68 cases, files out of 283 were not presented in court. It is shocking to note that 104 cases out of 283 were dropped because of incomplete investigations. Further notes that Knysna, Vredendal, George police stations were top of the list where important documents were missing. Lutzwil, Kraaifontein, Kuilsriver are police stations where incomplete investigations hampered the work of the courts. Calls for justice to prevail for the women mentioned in the GBV cases, that these cases be re-examined and readmitted to the court roll. The perpetrators in the police mistakes be identified and suffer the disgrace of dismissal from SAPS. I thank you.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? Well, no objections. Agreed to. Thank you very much. Honourable Seleko.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that this House take note of the recent flooding that devastated our city and rural towns all across the province. Various roads have been washed away. Up to 12,000 people have been affected, and an unknown number of individuals have unfortunately passed away. This House notes that proactive steps have been taken by the Western Cape Department, and the Provincial Disaster Management Centre was activated on Sunday after the South African Weather Services confirmed that the storm would be more severe than what it was initially anticipated. The disaster response of the Western Cape government to the severe weather has since shifted from saving lives to recovery and humanitarian aid coordination. This House further notes that mop-up operations have since started and various roads have since been reopened. While rebuilding commences, the Western Cape government is also considering asking for the deployment of the South African National Defence Force engineers to assist with rebuilding critical infrastructure in the Western Cape. Hierdie eis prys gee aan die uitlopende groep individue en organisasies wat bygedraai het tot hulp en nooddienste reg oor ons provinsie. Dit sluit nie net die toegewyde pogings van eerste reageerders nie, maar ook die gildheid van gewone burgers wat eerstes voorberei het, finansiële ondersteuning gebied het, krydeniesware geskenk het en onskatsbare bystand verleen het. I so move.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion being moved? What's your point of order, Honourable Member?
No, the point of order, Deputy Speaker, is just I didn't quite hear the beginning. And we would like to support a motion like that, but is it correct that the Honourable Member started off by referring to Gauteng in his statement? No, I just want, we didn't hear.
Honourable Member? No, there was no Gauteng mention, and I can confirm. Thank you. So, are there any objections to the motion being moved? No objections. Thank you. The motion will be printed. If no, the motion will be accepted. Thank you very much. I now recognize the Honourable Kaiser Verlander.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, that this House notes with approval the nomination of Chris Pappas as the DS Premier candidate for KwaZulu-Natal in the 2024 elections. Pappas received international recognition when Time magazine honored him as one of 24 young leaders in the leadership category on the Time 100 Next list earlier this month. Time commended his transformative impact on the Mbongeni municipality since taking office in November 2021. Order. His achievements include restoring the municipality's fiscal balance, a feat not seen in more than a decade, and facilitating the integration of 175 new homes into the electricity grid. Honourable Deputy Speaker, this House further notes that under Pappas' leadership, Mbongeni was declared debt-free in less than a year into governance. This House sends its best wishes to Premier candidate Chris Pappas in his mission to save KwaZulu-Natal, who is one of the country's biggest economic contributors. I so move, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion be moved without notice?
This is actually a waste of
No
our
objections.
time.
There are objections. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I now recognize the Honourable van der Westhuizen. Honourable members, order please. Honourable van der Westhuizen, you may proceed.
Deputy Speaker, I move without notice that the House notes with approval the Western Cape Department of Agriculture's launch of a Provincial Veterinary Week, notes that animal health is an important part of a successful agriculture sector, especially as it relates to the exportation of meat products, notes further that the support offered by the department in this regard is to the benefit of our farmers and enables them to grow their agribusinesses, creating much needed employment in the Western Cape. And just for the Honourable Dugmore, it's the Western Cape Department of Agriculture, not Gauteng.
Thank you very much.
Deputy Speaker.
Are there any objections to the motion being moved? Honourable Dugmore? Honourable Dugmore, are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? No objections. Agreed to. Thank you very much. Honourable Dugmore, now's your chance.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House extends its deepest regret at the passing of Lieutenant Commander Gillian Elizabeth Hector, Master Warrant Officer William Marcela Matipa, the coxswain, and Warrant Officer Class 1 Mokwapa Lucas Mojela, coxswain in training, while performing a naval exercise off the Simonstown coast last week, conveys its deepest condolences to the family and the friends of these Navy Marines, while calling upon the House to observe a moment of silence at the beginning of the next sitting, as well as requesting that the Premier declares a provincial day of mourning for these men and women who served our country and were based in our city and province. I so move.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? No objections. Agreed to. I now recognize Honourable Dugmore.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Once again, I move without notice on behalf of the ANC that the House commends the countless men and women who continue to mop up and clean up after the devastating rains and floods that besieged our province this past weekend, acknowledges the tremendous work done by disaster management staff, emergency personnel, non-governmental organizations, churches, mosques, and community organizations as they stood together to lighten the burden of the poor, especially those in the rural areas and in our historical township communities who are most affected by these floods. Condemns municipalities in this province who fail to invest in infrastructure and proper maintenance on sewage, as well as making land available in their municipalities.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion being moved? There are objections. The motion will be printed on the order paper. I now recognize Honourable Sayed. Order members. Order members.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, I move without notice that this House congratulates Herzliya High School for winning the Western Cape Metro Under 14K Motsepe School Championship, but notes with deep concern that these champions could not represent the region at the Western Cape Provincial Finals in Saldanha Bay this past weekend because the match was scheduled to be played on the Jewish Sabbath. Whilst acknowledging the great work done to develop sport by some non-governmental organizations, we call upon all sporting bodies or organizations to respect the holy days of all believers. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion being printed on the order paper? No objections. Agreed to. I recognize you again, Honourable Sayed.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House urgently calls upon the provincial government to address the critical safety concerns plaguing Hillside Primary in Mitchells Plain. This perilous situation marked by drug trafficking on the nearby hill and recurring break-ins demands for immediate attention and for collective efforts. As the ANC, we seek substantial investments in the infrastructure and personnel to fortify security measures and ensure the safety and well-being of learners and staff. Moreover, we implore the Education Department's Safe Schools Unit to amplify its responsiveness and support in addressing these distressing issues, forging a secure environment which is conducive to learning and growth. Time is of essence. We beseech prompt action to protect our educational sanctum.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion be moved without notice? No objections. Agreed to. I recognize Honourable Nkondlo.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move that the House welcomes the AGOA Forum to be hosted in South Africa in November 2023 in Johannesburg to discuss the future of the agreement and its possible extension in 2025. The strategic move signifies a promising step in the right direction, opening doors to amplify trade opportunities and economic growth. In reimagining AGOA, during this third review, the alignment of AGOA to Africa's industrialization program, wherein lies opportunities of US companies and investors to access mutually reinforcing economic benefits in the manufacturing sector, e.g. car components, green technology and agro-processing, given the much developed agri-sector in the country. This African common position on AGOA lays a strong basis for the extension of AGOA, as African countries had already been unanimous on advocating for the extension of AGOA, and South Africa nominated to put forward the African case to be discussed in the AGOA Forum in the meeting of November. These are positive developments that we must all support and continue to embrace towards an extension and enhance AGOA in 2025. I so move.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion being moved without notice? No objections. Agreed to. I now recognize the Honourable Kama.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. On behalf of the ANC, I move a motion without notice that the House notes the anniversary of the death in detention of Imam Abdullah Haron yesterday, a revered anti-apartheid activist and founder of the Claremont Muslim Youth Association. We solemnly remember his unwavering commitment to justice and equality. Held captive for 123 agonizing days, enduring unspeakable torture by the apartheid security branch, his sacrifice remains etched in our collective memory. As we approach the anticipated judgment on October 9 of 2023, we anticipate a just resolution, providing the much needed closure for his grieving family and a testament to the pursuit of truth and justice. May his legacy inspire generations to stand against oppression and prejudice. I so move.
Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion be moved without notice? No objections. Agreed to. Honourable members, motion 14 has been withdrawn. So that concludes motions without notice. The secretary will now read the first order of the day.
Consideration of report of the Standing Committee on Social Development on the Fundraising Amendment Bill B29B 2016 NCOP.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. The House received the report of the Standing Committee on Social Development on the Fundraising Amendment Bill, conferring authority on the Western Cape delegation in the NCOP to support this bill. This mandate has been sent to the NCOP. I will now afford members and parties an opportunity to make a declaration if they so wish. I recognize the ANC.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Honourable.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you very much, Speaker.
Honourable Bakafos, I can hear you clearly.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise today on behalf of the ANC for wholeheartedly express our resolute support for the Fundraising Amendment Bill 329B/2020 NCOP. This legislation represents a pivotal stride in our continuous endeavor to fortify the regulatory frame that oversees fundraising activities in our nation. This bill has garnered unwavering backing from members of the provincial legislature across all political affiliations. This resounding endorsement underscores our shared commitment to enhancing transparency, accountability, and efficiency in fundraising endeavors. Regardless of political affiliation, such widespread endorsement underscores the profound recognition of the bill's significance in safeguarding the interests of our communities. The primary purpose of this bill is to amend the Fundraising Act of 1978. It seeks to refine certain divisions, certain definitions, effect textual amendments for greater clarity, discontinue certain funds, dissolve board responsibility for those funds, and establish the disaster relief of the National Social Development Fund, and to transfer any amount remaining in the discontinued funds to the disaster relief and National Social Development Fund additional. It empowers the minister to make regulations regarding the financial of a fund and addresses other related matters. The ANC particularly welcomes the insertion of Section 25A into Act 107 of 1978. This section establishes procedure for the discontinuation and transfer of specific funds. It stipulates that certain funds, such as Refugee Relief Fund, the State President Fund, and Social Relief Fund,
Thank you.
And social relief funds.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Your time is up. Please, can I ask the members who are online to speak? Honourable Bakafors? Thank you. Your time is up. To speak loudly, please, and clearly, because for the Hansard, we cannot record the sound that's going high and low all the time. Thank you, Honourable Bakafors. Your time was up. I recognize the EFF. No? No? I recognize good. No?
No. Declaration.
Yes, you may proceed. Okay, thank you very much. I hear
said
you.
no.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I recognize the ACDP.
No declaration, Speaker.
Thank you very much. I recognize Freedom Front Plus. No, I'm assuming. I recognize Al Jamar.
Thank you very much, Speaker. No declaration, Speaker.
Thank you. Noted. Thank you very much. I recognize Democratic Alliance.
Deputy Speaker, very short from my side. After the committee conducted public hearings across the province, the committee unanimously resolved to support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm just trying to confirm how many members we have. 32. Thank you very much. I have to announce that there are currently 32 honourable members present and entitled to vote, and the House is therefore quorate. The question put before the House at the Standing Committee on Social Development on the Fundraising Amendment Bill conferring authority on the Western Cape delegation in the NCOP to support this bill be ratified and adopted. No objections? No objections. Agreed
No
to.
objections.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy.
I now will ask the Secretary to read the second order of the day.
Oorweging van verslag van die ad hoc komitee oor die aanstelling van die staatsdienskommissaris vir die Wes-Kaap, gedateer 21 September 2023.
Baie dankie, Secretaris. I've been informed by the Chief Whip that the Programming Authority resolved that there will be no list of speakers and that parties who wish to do so will now be afforded an opportunity to make a declaration on the report for a maximum of 3 minutes. I recognize the ANC. No. Thank you very much. I will move over to the EFF. No. Good.
No declaration.
Thank you very much. ACDP.
Declaration.
Noted. Thank you. Freedom Front Plus. I'm assuming no. Al Jamar.
No declaration, Speaker.
Thank you very much. I recognize the Democratic Alliance.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the Public Service Commissioner has a crucial role to perform in our society in keeping a watchful eye over government, ensuring that the public service remains committed above all to the people of this province. Among the responsibilities of this office are to promote constitutional values and sound principles, public administration in the government, and to keep government free from corruption and maladministration. Deputy Speaker, an ad hoc committee to administrate the appointment of a new public service commissioner was formed, and a rigorous process was followed to ensure the best candidate was found. The post was widely advertised and 4 candidates were shortlisted to be interviewed by the committee. All the candidates went through a security vetting process, as the integrity of this person to hold this position must be above reproach. A comprehensive interview with the ad hoc committee followed and a leading candidate emerged. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the committee thus recommend Mr. Ashley Seal to the House for approval as the Premier's nominee for appointment as the Public Service Commissioner for the Western Cape. We believe Mr. Seal has the necessary skills and depth of character to perform this role to the highest standard, and that he will uphold the important values that his new office demands. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you very much. There was a problem with connectivity, so I'm just going to give a moment for the ANC to give their declaration.
Am I audible, Chair?
You are. Just give me 1 second, Honourable Lecker. Honourable Chief Whip.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. May I address you?
Yes, you may.
Deputy Speaker, at the beginning of the sitting, it is quite clear that members are responsible, those that are online, to make sure that their connectivity are in order. If not, they should contact the IT department of the WCPP. We cannot create the precedents of members not adhering to that and wanting an opportunity after the opportunity has passed.
Thank you very much.
Please make a decision and rule on that.
It's noted. I'm going to proceed. In the interest of collegiality today, I'm going to proceed because this is a declaration, and so I am going to allow the ANC to continue in this moment. Thank you very much. You may proceed. Honourable Lecker, over to you.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I must sincerely apologize. I'm having difficulties with my phone today. But let me get into the declaration. Deputy Speaker, the ANC does not support this report. What this report should have stated was that in terms of Section 4, subsection 4 of the Public Service Commission Amendment Act, this House was considering the renewal of the term of the new outgoing commissioner. Despite the fact that the law allows for the renewal of the term of a commissioner, particular DA members of the committee insisted on advertising the vacancy and recruit someone else. The only requirement for the renewal of the term of office for the commissioner was that he or she should have, and I quote, maintained a satisfactory level of performance in relation to his or her duties, end quote. This House today must commend Mr. Leonardo Goosen for doing a sterling job at being the Public Service Commissioner in the Western Cape for the last 5 years. So sterling was his performance that the DA sought to see him go. Mr. Goosen pursued his duties without fear or favor, and this often landed him in trouble with the first office of this province and members of the executive. As even DA members of the committee agreed, Mr. Goosen displayed the utmost determination of putting the people of the Western Cape first. Mr. Goosen put the learners of the Western Cape first when he exposed malfeasance at the number of former Model C schools. He exposed the poor handling of clients at healthcare facilities in poorer communities such as Easterfield, and lifted the lead on the maintenance crisis at Red Cross Children's Hospital. Mr. Goosen was at the forefront of investigation into the alleged rape of a minor by a fellow patient at a mental care facility in Stellenbosch. All of this exposes the DA's failure, and no matter how good he was at doing his job, he had to go. And today we see him go. The profile of the Western Cape are poorer, no longer having Mr. Goosen protecting them. Instead, the provincial government of the Western Cape insider has been appointed to replace him. The ANC therefore rejects this report. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Honourable Kasim and Honourable Members, you know, the Chief Whip is correct. We should be self-responsible, but I have now, in the interest of collegiality and at the end of the day, to allow the ANC. So, Honourable Kasim, I hear you also have connectivity problems. Do you want to make a declaration? I'm going to assume that that is a no. Thank you. I can confirm and announce that there are currently 32 honourable members present and entitled to vote, and the House is therefore quorate. The question put before the House is that the report on the ad hoc committee be adopted. Are there any objections to the report being adopted? There are objections. Those objections will be noted. So I'm going to take it that those in favor of the report have unanimously said yes as a majority. Thank you very much. I do think that the Ayes have it. Question is approved. Honourable members, before we adjourn, I'd like to inform the members that the CPA General Meeting will commence straight after this. The WCPP CWP will commence straight after the adjournment of the CPA, and that concludes the business for the day. The Secretary will now end the meeting.